Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in Season 2 Part 15 of What If the Transformers Crash Landed in Code Geass. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Light and darkness. It was pure chaos all across the bridge of the Ark as all the military officers tried to get a clear reading of what was happening all across the world, trying to do something to get as much information as they can from all their active teams, but so far nothing. We still can't contact any of our forces. All attempts to locate any Cybertronian signal have been blocked. London team has gone completely dark. The Black Wyverns and the Autobots with them are off the grid. Nobody in areas 18 or 20 is responding. We can't reach the wreckers in Antarctica either. Can't we get thermal imaging? Cecile questioned. Negative. All forms of communicating or imaging are being scrambled. We can't lock on any specific coordinates for a ground bridge either. We can't even contact Zero or Optimus or anyone on their team. How is this even possible? Rakshata questioned, her tone unusually nervous. How are we so in the dark here? We can't get any sort of reading. The thought elevators, Lloyd commented. It was exactly the same on Kaname Island when Suzaku, Dreadwing, and Euphemia vanished. We couldn't establish any form of contact with them. It was the same thing on our end with Zero, Optimus, and the others. We couldn't even read the Autobots' signals, Diethard added. That is until the thought elevator there was destroyed. Shockwave has had over 6 months to study them. Fixit said. So it is only natural he was able to understand how they function and they can be used against us. Maybe if we open ground bridges outside these dead zones, maybe we can, Claus was beginning to suggest until. No. Euphemia spoke up, causing everyone to look at her in surprise. We can't do that. What do you mean we can't do that? Claus questioned. We can't risk sending anybody out there into these traps without knowing exactly what they're getting into. Euphemia stated. We could also be potentially opening the doorway for Shockwave's forces to get to Horai Island, and if that happens, we've lost the war, Geass said gravely, understanding exactly what Euphemia was saying. It was something that Fixit and everyone else came to understand in that one moment. There wasn't anything they can do to help their friends and allies right now. I know it's hard, Euphemia began. Somehow, Shockwave was ready for us. But, the fact that these dead zones are still active means they're still fighting. Zero, Optimus, Suzaku, Cornelia, all of them. They're fighting with everything they have. Tears of fury welled up in her eyes as she tried her best to steel herself. We have to put our faith in them. Because that's all we can do. Maybe not. All eyes turned to the side as they saw Nina running toward them with a laptop in her hands, TAI's holographic form appearing next to her. I think I have an idea. Antarctica. Wheeljack swung his blades in every direction he could think of, but he couldn't land a single hit on the red pawn in front of him as it moved at super speeds that made it seem like blurs. After the 6th slice, that red pawn delivered a kick to knock Wheeljack back across the ice. Nonette flew in her Galician as she fired her Varus at the pursuing red pawn, but it proved too fast for her as it evaded all her shots with ease before closing the distance with a swipe to knock her back, though Nonette was able to stabilize herself and continue flying away. Chromia used her rifle to parry a chop from another red pawn, but her rifle was destroyed by the attack as she was knocked down. That red pawn had leapt into the air to strike at her while she was down, but it was blown away by 3 charged shots from Ironhide's cannons as he ran to her defense, facing off against the 4th red pawn that landed in front of him. Down in the water, Warpath had transformed into his tank mode to shoot at the power unit, but it had braced itself in the water, using its heavy armor to tank most of the blasts around it, though Dalk's unit did end up damaged from the attack. With her distracted, Tamaki tried to move in to destroy the thought elevator. Hang on, I got it. He spotted the mysterious and ominous-looking ruin that was embedded into the ocean floor. Tamaki, look out. Warpath's warning came just as the power unit brought its arms together to generate a shockwave-like blast that pushed back both the wrecker Akatsuki and Red Autobot. Russian mountains. Gino grunted as his Tristan divider was knocked down to the mountain, skidding down the side before crashing on the ledge. The flying red pawn that had attacked him was about to come down for the kill, but Grindcore had tackled it right as it reached the ledge. Don't run off so quick. Grindcore told the mindless drone. I haven't given you the tour of my fists yet. He pounded on the red pawn relentlessly until it was a pile of scrap in the snow. Damn you, hold still. Yukiya cursed as he tried to shoot down a flying red pawn, but it quickly flew in to try and close the distance, forcing Yukiya to pull his Alexander back and avoid the strike. Strongarm and Ayano tried to provide covering fire, forcing the speedy red pawn back, but two more landed on opposite ends, causing the white and blue Autobot to come back to back with Ayano's Alexander right as they advanced on the pair. Sideswipe tried to bring his sword down on a red pawn, but it caught his blade in between its hands. Keep em there, Swipe. Ryo's Alexander sped along from behind in its spider mode, shooting at the red pawn in the back, getting a successful hit in to weaken it, and allowing Sideswipe to pull his blade back and decapitate it. However, any celebration came to an end as the last red pawn sped along to strike the Ryo in the side and knock his Alexander upside down. Ryo. Sideswipe ran to assist him, swinging his sword and forcing the red pawn to fly away. You okay, man? I'm surviving. Ryo grunted as he tried to pull his nightmare up. Suddenly, an explosion along the roof of the nearby cave had erupted, getting everyone's attention as both Alexanders piloted by Akito and Layla respectively sped out, the Thanatos flying through the rubble right behind them before gunning straight for Akito, drawing his blade and forcing him on the defensive from the Thanatos' relentless attacks. Layla, please tell me that's not who I think it is. Gino was already sweating. It's exactly who you think it is. Layla's eyes narrowed from within her cockpit. It's Shin. Aw scrap, not this guy again. Sideswipe groaned. We got other problems. Ayano warned as the four remaining red pawns regrouped in the sky before going on the attack once more. Area 18. Senba gave a final scream as his Akatsuki unit was obliterated by a red pawn that brought its hand down for a chop through his cockpit, killing him in that instant. Senba. Asahina screamed as Chiba gave a vengeful yell, charging directly at that red pawn to swing her sword, but it flew up and out of the way to avoid her slash. Ashley's Dragonet had moved in close quarters to one red pawn as he tried to swing his sword and fire his gun at the same time, hoping to at least scratch him, but he was unable to land a single shot in. Even as Jean and Sokia tried to shoot at the red pawn from a distance with the guns from their respective nightmares, but it speedily dodged all the bullets and took to the skies to get some distance from the three. Damn buckets. Ashley cursed. The two Bradfords piloted by both Marika and Lenhart tried to get the third red pawn in a crossfire attack from their Harkins, but the red pawn jumped into the air to avoid them. He's in the air. Lenhart shouted. Cross spear. Now. Marika ordered as the Harkins of both their nightmares combined together to fire a cross attack of their Hadron spears, two beams firing at each other in the air and crisscrossing at the red pawn, which was unable to dodge it while airborne. It was quickly destroyed in the attack. Maribel's Lancelot trial engaged a red pawn in the air, slicing with its dual MVS blades, but the red pawn dodged each of them before delivering an airborne punch to the red nightmare's face to knock it to the ground. But the Lancelot Grail came at the red pawn from the side with its own blades as Uldren tried to attack and defend the woman she loved. The Vincent Graham piloted by Sokia was knocked to the ground by the sixth red pawn. However, Shinki's Shenhu had fired its chest-mounted Baryon cannon, forcing the red pawn to leap back as the blue nightmare landed to protect the red one as its piloted pulled it up. Thank you, Sokia said with relief. You're welcome, Shink replied before a seventh red pawn had landed to face them. Meanwhile, inside the cave, Drift had drawn both his katanas and crossed them like an X to protect himself from the relentless rapid blasts from the land headmaster unit. Though this seemed to be a distraction as Todo's Zangetsu rolled along the cavern ceiling and gunned for the thought elevator that the land unit was protection. However, Lucretia had turned her unit's upper body around a full 180 degrees and focused its fire on Todo, forcing him to leap from the roof just in time as he tried to fly in and attack the enemy headmaster, but the land unit crossed its large guns to block the Black Nightmare's katana. I'm sorry. Lucretia apologized from within, causing Todo's eyes to widen slightly. The tone of her voice from inside said she was emotionally torn. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Area 20. Chigusa gave a yell as her Vincent was knocked back against the rocky wall, water from a waterfall splashing all over her. Chigusa. Eject now. She heard Prowl's voice through the comms and did just that, ejecting her nightmare's cockpit in time as the hand thrust from one red pawn had pierced through her Vincent, but that red pawn was swiftly decapitated by the shuriken that the running Prowl had thrown its way. His weapon returned to him just as he caught Chigusa's cockpit. "Thanks, Prowl." She smiled as her ejected cockpit opened. "I need to put you inside for your own safety." A door opened up on the side of his chest. "It's cramped, but can you make do?" "I'll have to." Chigusa quickly climbed in as the hatch closed. "Don't worry about me," she said as she tried to squeeze herself in tight. "Just give them hell." "That is the plan," Prowl confirmed as he squared off with another red pawn. Ultra Magnus charged as he fired his dual ion blasters at one red pawn, but it leapt and flew into the air to avoid his shots. Another was about to attack from behind, but Smokescreen had leapt from a nearby waterfall to deliver a flying kick to nail that red pawn and send it crashing into the shallow water, but it quickly rolled back up on its feet and faced Smokescreen. "Let's dance, you wanna be con?" Smokescreen challenged as he raised his fists eagerly. Cornelia sped her Vincent through the water and rocks as a red pawn flew above her. She tried to shoot at it while it was airborne, but it was too quick for her before it flew down to try and strike her. Cornelia was forced to draw her Vincent's blade to parry the hand thrust of the red pawn. Guilford tried to provide aid, but another red pawn would appear before him to bar his way, much to his frustration. Meanwhile, inside the cavern behind one waterfall, Monica's Florence Nero had clashed its own MVS claws against the curved blades of the Order unit. She tried to fly and find a way around it, but Sancha's own ability and customized unit was able to calculate Monica's direction and sliced one of its blades at her, the force of the impact sending the Florence Nero crashing and bouncing against the wall. Sancha's systems then alerted her to Geass as he tried to get to the thought elevator at the end of the cave, but she moved her unit as fast as she could to ram its shoulder into him, knocking him into the wall. "Hey, we're trying to help you," Geass told her as he tried to push the Order unit back. "You're a friend of Alice's, right? You don't wanna be Shockwave's little experiment anymore, right? Let us trash this thing and help you." "I can't let that happen," Sancha replied as Geass slipped around and moved behind her, but she quickly turned her unit around to face him again. "Matt is watching all of us. The slightest hint of deception or treachery, he'll destroy units remotely. I'm sorry, but we don't have a choice here." Jazz's expression became sympathetic as he heard that. "I'm sorry too, but I got a job to do, and that's saving you and trashing that elevator thing." He ran to charge her again. London. The skies lit up with multiple explosions as Silverbolt, Jetfire, and Windblade flew in their respective jet modes. 3 red pawns flying and giving chase before the 3 aerial bots flew in separate directions, forcing the red pawns to split up as they were locked in a dogfight. Silverbolt transformed while airborne to shoot at the incoming red pawn he faced, but every shot veered past it as it picked its speed to close the distance and tackle him in the air, though he was able to bring both his hands down on its head to force it to let go before transforming again to fly away, prompting the red pawn to chase him once more. Jetfire remained in his jet mode as he turned around and opened fire at the charging red pawn, essentially playing a game of chicken to see who would get out of the line of fire first. The red pawn was able to avoid most of the deadlier shots, though it did get skid along the sides to scratch it up. They got too close however as Jetfire was forced to pull up to avoid a deadly collision. Windblade had one red pawn pursuing her that she couldn't shake. Though the female Arielbot noticed that her pursuer was quickly closing the gap and thought she could use that to her advantage. However, before she got any thoughts about trying to fight back, she noticed Ogi's Gawain Narian was being encircled from all sides by 2 red pawns. That's when the idea came to her. Ogi. Windblade got his attention as she flew toward him, the red pawn flying. "Fire your hadrons right at me." "Windblade, what are you?" Ogi didn't understand as she saw Windblade's jet mode flying right at him. "Just do it, now," she exclaimed. No time to question it, Ogi fired his Nightmare's shoulder-mounted hadron cannons at Windblade, who was able to curve her jet mode down and under, avoiding the beam that had struck the red pawn, causing it to explode in a fiery display. The residual force of the blast was enough to force the 2 red pawns that had been attacking him to back away slightly, with Windblade shooting at them to get them to further increase the distance. "Thanks for the save," Windblade said as she transformed and hovered back to back with the Gawain Narian. "Thank me when we survive this," Ogi said as those 2 red pawns returned to face them. Meanwhile, a similar battle was taking place in the River Thames as RC was engaged in brutal hand-to-hand combat with one red pawn, though she was stuck on defense as her enemy's speed clearly surpassed hers. Even when she tried to attack with a punch, it swiftly dodged her strike and knocked her down with a more powerful punch. RC, move out of the way. Colin activated the Gurren's energy wing system to fire multiple energy blades at the red pawn. RC quickly transformed and drove away just as the energy blades struck the ground around the red pawn, forcing it to try and jump, though its legs were caught in the explosion, blasting them away. With it partially immobile, Colin launched her Surger Claw, attacked her Gurren via its cable, and grabbed onto its chest before she activated the Surger to finish off the red pawn in a flurry of fire. Suzaku quickly activated the Lancelot's Blaze Luminous system to protect himself from the Dark Mordred's Hadron cannons, but the force of the impact still knocked his nightmare back. "Anya, stop this, please," Suzaku cried out. "I don't want to fight you." "Neither do I," the sobbing Anya said within her own nightmare. Shockwave, he saw all of this coming. "If I don't, he'll kill me, and the others." Anya, Suzaku couldn't quite see her face, but he could only imagine her torn and emotional face as he heard her cries. He remembered when they attended Ashford together. Anya seemed like such a quiet and stoic girl, but he could tell that she was a good person. So the thought of her being forced into a situation like this only made his blood boil. Shockwave, Megatron, just how many more lives are you going to ruin before you're satisfied? Elita 1 had suddenly appeared on top of the Mordred, standing on its shoulders as she drew her own arm blades to slice off the Hadron cannons before leaping back to face her. "Anya, I don't know you all that well, but I promise we will save you." Elita 1 vowed. "I swear it." Of course, it wasn't just Elita who made that vow. Within Anya's own mind, Marianne made the same vow herself. Their plan to tip off Lelouch and everyone to the Geass Order's location and rescue them all may have failed, but there was still a chance to get out of this particular spot and destroy the thought elevator. In fact, what that pink Autobot just did gave her an idea. "Anya, let me drive," Marianne told the girl. "I think I can get us out of this." Geass Order. The outermost area of the Citadel had turned into a full-scale war zone as several buildings in the area crumbled from the explosions and clashes of metal and energy raging against one another. What appeared to be causing the most amount of destruction was the driller that moved up and down along the ground, burrowing its way toward Grimlock as he ran to get some distance. When the monster was about to catch up to him, Grimlock rolled along the side just as the driller shot downward to try and crush its prey, but Grimlock plunged his sword into the driller's side, causing the beast to growl in pain as it shot its upper head upward, shaking itself to try and wrench Grimlock loose, which it was able to do as it sent the Dinobot crashing into a nearby building. The driller then felt multiple explosions on its exposed underbelly, courtesy of Alice in the Pegasus as she fired her Nightmare's rifle to try and do some damage, which it seemed like she was able to do before the driller set its sights toward her, drilling up and into a structure to gain some altitude as Alice pulled her unit back. The Dark Fafnir rained a volley of missiles toward the incoming Agravain and Guka Byakuin. Wizard retaliated with a series of missiles from his own Nightmare to intercept and create a large explosion, followed by a cloud of smoke. Using the smoke for cover, Orpheus shot his Byakuin forward to try and get close, going for the Dark Fafnir's left side, specifically the large cone-like device. The Gefgen blaster built into the Byakuin's head activated and fired a surge of condensed energy into the limb portion, causing the entire left cone to break apart and explode. However, the Dark Fafnir was able to eject the remaining portions of the left arm to avoid any further damage to the central unit before pulling back upwards, prompting Wizard and Orpheus to follow. Sarah grunted as her Akatsuki's katana collided with the sword of the Dark Queen, which went on to attack with a secondary sword in its free hand, but Sarah pulled her pink Akatsuki backwards to avoid the slice and then retaliated with a series of missiles from its wrist, but the Dark Queen flew up and over the projectiles before coming back down to attack in close quarters again. On the ground, Bumblebee drove in his vehicle mode straight for Shockwave as he was in his tank mode, firing blast after blast at the speeding scout, but Bumblebee was able to avoid the majority of the blasts as he quickly closed the distance, transforming to jump and leap on top of Shockwave to try and pull up on his cannon, but Shockwave transformed as well to throw Bumblebee off and into the wall of a broken building. Shockwave then went on to slam the smaller Autobot further into the wall by ramming his shoulder into him. As he slumped down, Shockwave aimed his arm cannon at Bumblebee's head. "There is more than one way to silence an Autobot," Shockwave said as he primed his cannon, but was forced to deviate as a set of slash Harkins struck his side, and a Hadron blast erupted at the ground beneath him to send him backwards, skidding on his feet as he saw the Shinkiro flying right at him. "You may have set up a trap, but your Geass order will fall," Lelouch declared as the Shinkiro closed the distance to strike Shockwave across the face, but when Zero was about to fire a point-blank Hadron blast from his unit's right arm, Shockwave grabbed the bottom of the arm and forced him to fire away before slamming his cannon into the Shinkiro to knock it back slightly and fired a blast at the Nightmare's chest to knock it down even further. "Illogical," Shockwave replied. "Your determination will not change the outcome." Optimus Prime stood at the top of a pile of rubble as the flying Nemesis Prime gathered up a sphere of chaotic red energy from his glowing crystals and threw it at Optimus, only for the sphere to detonate against the Sky Boom shield as it protected Optimus with a powerful barrier. The true Prime swung the Star Saber to send a horizontal wave at his counterfeit, who quickly flew upwards to avoid the devastating slice that obliterated a series of structures behind him. "You think that fancy sword and shield will scare me?" Nemesis called out. "What good can any of that power do if you can't even touch me with it? My newfound energy is charged with a mix of synthetic and red energon, granting me even more speed and power than you can ever hope to dream of." "Are you trying to impress me, Victor?" Optimus questioned. "If so, you are only failing miserably." That earned a growl from the immortal boy inside the metallic body. "I don't want or need your praise, Prime. I just need you dead." He threw another sphere of energy at Optimus, who retaliated with a swing of the Star Saber as it got close to cleave the attack in half. It was a narrow escape, but the group consisting of Bulkhead, Ratchet, Rai, Nunnally, Shirley, Rivals, Millie, Sayoko, Jeremiah, Misty, Toto, Joseph, and the remaining scientists were able to find some form of shelter deep underground in a cavern that hadn't been outfitted with Shockwave's technology, all thanks to the phase shifter. "Oh, Cybertronian tech, where would we be without you?" Rivals literally thanked the phase shifter attached to Bulkhead's wrist. "Probably 6 feet under," Bulkhead himself replied. "Well, this turned out to be a total bust. Shockwave was waiting for us," Millie stated. Ratchet scoffed in annoyance. "Of course, he was. I don't understand though, how?" Joseph stuttered. We planned carefully. How could we have?" "Daddy, it happens." Shirley tried to say something, offering what comfort she could as she placed a hand on his shoulder. "We've learned not to underestimate the Decepticons. But even that came back to bite us." Despite those words, the fact that his own daughter was now directly involved in this life or death situation because of him only made him feel worse. What if she was killed? It would be all his fault. "We can still find a way out of this," Nunnally said, trying to get everyone together. "It may seem bleak, but we may find a way." "What do you have in mind?" Toto asked. "Jeremiah, do you know the layout of this place?" Nunnally asked the cyborg. "More or less, but there is a possibility that it was changed after my supposed death back in Paris." Jeremiah replied. As Shockwave expected this attack, he likely did what he could to ensure we'd be trapped with little to no hope of escape. "What if we were to just drive straight with the phase shifter?" Misty suggested. "We've already used it to avoid all of Shockwave's traps so far." "Yeah, let's just gun it straight till we're out of this dump and bridge out of here." Rivals was already on board. "I was actually thinking that exact same thing," Nunnally said. "Jeremiah, you'd at least know the basic layout of this whole place, as in which direction we'd go. Ratchet, you can try and contact anyone as we move along. Even if this whole base is blocking our communications, it has to have a range, right?" "Perhaps, though based on what we've heard, the thought elevator appears to be the source of our predicament," Ratchet said. "Then maybe we destroy it ourselves," Shirley suggested. "We're already here, and it sounds like Optimus and Zero might have their hands full right now." "That's way too dangerous. Shockwave will have that thing heavily guarded," Rai stated. "I'd rather not." Hello. Does anyone read me?" Everyone looked in surprise to hear a familiar voice echoing throughout the cavern. "What was that?" Bulkhead asked. "That sounded like Euphemia," Toto said. "Somebody, please respond." They heard it again, but they were able to trace the sound, to raise prosthetic arm. He slowly raised his arm as everyone eyed it with curiosity as he spoke into it. Hello. Rai. Oh, thank God, they heard Euphemia breathe a sigh of relief on the other side. Is Nunnally with you? What about the others? Euphi, I'm here, Nunnally said, looking happy to hear her voice. Everyone's here, we're safe. Oh, you have no idea how good it is to hear a familiar voice right about now. Rivals breathed a sigh of relief. How are you able to establish contact? All our communications are blocked. Misty stated. It's with the thought elevators, right? Nina's voice was heard this time. Nina. Ratchet didn't expect to hear her voice. Well, Tai and I were able to match the communications frequency of the communicator built into Ray's arm with the same every wavelength of the thought elevator. Nina explained. Since it's wired directly into him, and Rai has a Geass, we were able to establish an effective link based on the matching thought energy waves emitted by both the Geass and thought elevators. Can you repeat that? With smaller words, please? Bulkhead asked. I'm basically using Ray's brain as an antenna, all because he has a Geass and he's in the range of an active thought elevator. Nina summed up. Oh, well, that's cool, and kinda gross. Rai cringed. Wait a minute, a link to his brain. Joseph began to think for a minute. Dad, Shirley wondered what he was thinking. Arkaville's work has always been neurotechnology. Joseph said. That's probably how he's controlling everything, with his brain. Which means, if we can isolate the control frequency of the neural remote link Arkvale is employing, Ratchet followed along as he took out his scanner and began to remotely scan the general area. I should be able to pinpoint his location. And then we can jump him with the phase shifter and be all, booyah. Rivals punched his fist into the air. In your face. Despite that, the group's current situation was rather tense as they still had plenty of concerns right now. Can you guys track our location? Maybe call in a ground bridge to get us out of here? Rai asked. No, we can't track you, just contact you. Nina replied. Otherwise, we would have already called in a ground bridge. What's going on with everyone else? Millie asked. We were lured into a trap, I'm guessing Optimus and Zero are too. What about the other teams? Same thing, Euphemia reported gravely. We've lost contact with all of them, and there are these dead zones at each of their locations, making it impossible to open a ground bridge with any of them either. Likely using the thought elevators at each location, Toto assumed before growling. That damn shockwave. Well, maybe there's something we can do here, since we can contact base. Shirley hoped. Aha! Ratchet exclaimed enthusiastically as his scanner beeped. Frequency isolated. Wait a minute, he looked at the scanner again, causing him to look more confused. I'm picking up 2 locations. It is most likely Mad. Jeremiah assumed. Yes, if Arkvale is controlling the defenses here, Mad may be responsible for what's going on at the other locations. Joseph said. Nunnally's eyes then widened as an idea came to her. That's it. That's how we turn this whole thing around. Ratchet, how far away are each of those 2 spots? The Autobot medic looked at his scanner again. One location is roughly 2 kilometers east of here, the other is 5 in the northwestern direction. Alright, here's the plan. Nunnally got everyone's attention. We're going to split up into 2 teams. Bulkhead, you're taking Rai, Shirley, her father, Jeremiah, and Millie to the furthest one away. Use the phase shifter to get you straight there. Ratchet, you're taking me, Sayoko, Rivals, Toto, Misty, and the other scientists we have to spot that's closer. We're going to do what we can to stop whatever it is. Hopefully if we get it done, we'll be able to track each other again and meet up. Everyone looked toward each other in surprise as they let all that process in their heads. Even those that knew Nunnally the longest didn't expect her to come up with such a plan. One that had a pair of well-balanced teams that, if done right, could turn the tides of this otherwise bleak outcome. Once again, they had to silently remind themselves whose sister this was. Hey, look at you kiddo. Bulkhead smirked with approval. Making complicated plans like your brother. You're a zero in your own right, Nunnally. Millie said impressed, causing Nunnally to smirk just like her brother, something that caused Sayoko and Jeremiah both exchanged proud smiles with one another. Euphi, Nina, did you guys get all that? Rai asked through his arm's communication device. We did, it might work. Nina responded. But we don't know for sure if this is connected to the dead zones or not. Nunnally, are you absolutely sure about this? Euphemia asked. I'm sure. She confirmed. They heard the former princess sigh deeply on the other end of the line. When did you grow up so fast? All right, just be careful. Got it. Nunnally nodded. Well, what are we waiting for? Rivals urged. Let's take this place down and stick it to the cons. With that, both Autobots transformed once again. Rai, Shirley, Joseph, Millie, and Jeremiah entered Bulkhead's Jeep mode, while Nunnally, Rivals, Toto, Misty, Sayoko, and the other scientists entered Ratchet's ambulance mode. Bulkhead activated the phase shifter and drove straight through the cavern walls, while Ratchet followed a more open path. The Nemesis. Within the confines of his vault, Megatron had spent the last few moments getting the handle of his new toy. With the active forge of Solus Prime in his hands, not only was he easily able to reattach his fusion cannon to the arm of Liege Maximo that he had stolen from his corpse, he pounded a certain dark glowing substance repeatedly, and with each strike, the substance began to take a new shape as it was restructured on a near molecular level. Incredible, Schneisel observed as he, Starscream, Steeljaw, Knockout, Thundercracker, and Skybite continued to watch Megatron work. This forge of Solus Prime can essentially create anything out of nothing. The power of the primes is unbelievable. Yes, but it doesn't create anything out of nothing. Thundercracker clarified. Matter can't simply pop into existence. But to create weapons from even the rawest of materials is nothing to scoff at either. Skybite said. And in this case, said raw material, would be a big hunk of dark energon. Knockout commented. It was true. The substance that Megatron had been forging was indeed the blood of Unicron. Even as it would take a new shape with each strike from the forge, the dark and evil essence from the vile substance would still remain, as was Megatron's intent. Starscream watched with unease. Depending on how this goes, it may hinder our plans. But I suppose we'll just have to wait and see. But it wasn't just Starscream who felt nervous. Hiding in a small opening within the ceiling of the vault was Hotshot, who continued to watch Megatron work. This is not good. I gotta find a way to get that hammer away from him. The rookie wrecker thought, desperately trying to come up with a plan. Geass order. Nemesis Prime's body surged with red energy as he shot straight at Optimus, trying to strike him like a missile, but the True Prime brought up the Sky Boom shield to project a barrier to block Nemesis Prime's charge. The momentum from his attempted strike blew away much of the rubble and debris behind Optimus. As Optimus swung the Star Saber at him, Nemesis flew up to avoid the strike. Alice flew around the driller as it curved its way up the building, shooting every distance weapon the Pegasus had in a desperate attempt to slow it down. But one of its rotating bladed tentacles shot out and struck the Pegasus, sending it tumbling down to the wrecked roof of the very structure the driller was on. It loomed directly over her, ready to press down and tear her to shreds. Alice closed her eyes with a frightened expression, expecting her imminent death. Until Grimlock's Tyrannosaur's form exploded out from the rooftop, standing protectively in front of Alice as he let loose the most powerful plasma breath attack straight into the driller's open mouth, burning and blasting away at its insides throughout its upper body, causing it to roar in pain. It was about to slam its whole form down on the both of them in rage, but Grimlock quickly transformed back to grab the Pegasus and leap off the roof just as the driller slammed down to collapse the entire structure. Orpheus gave a yell as the Byakugan shot its arm-mounted electrical gun barrel device directly into the active cone on the right side of the Dark Fafnir. However, the cone fired a beam at that moment as both attacks surged against one another, creating a flash of energy and electricity that seemed to be in favor of the Dark Fafnir as the Byakugan's entire left arm, including its most powerful weapon, was blasted away, sending the White Nightmare tumbling down toward a structure. It's open. Now, Orpheus called out as the Agravain appeared from directly under the Dark Fafnir, plunging both its blades into the cannon as Oegros fired the Hadron cannons point-blank into the cannon and underbelly of the massive unit. All that power, plus the piercing of the massive undercannon caused a chain reaction that detonated the cannon right as the Agravain pulled back. The underside of the Dark Fafnir detonated, causing it to fall out of the sky and crash through a few of the structures below before it finally exploded, destroying it once and for all. That's one less thing to worry about. Oegros breathed in relief. Orpheus, are you alright? I'll live. The nephew responded. He looked at one of his monitors to find the pink Akatsuki backed into a corner as the Dark Queen kept up its ruthless onslaught. Sarah needs help. Then let's not keep the lady waiting, Oyagros said as the one-armed Byakuin picked itself back up and flew alongside the Agravain to help their mortal comrade. Shockwave fired a charged shot from his cannon at the Shinkiro as Zero fired a Hadron blast from his Nightmare's right wrist, creating an explosion in between the two of them. Bumblebee then rushed through the smoke, drawing his katana as he used to slice at Shockwave's chest, creating a scratch while the Autobot scout fired a series of energon blasts in that same spot, but Shockwave slammed his cannon into Bumblebee to knock him down. The Shinkiro then flew in to thrust an arm blade at Shockwave, but he batted it away with his cannon and grabbed the Shinkiro by its throat to slam it down to the ground, only for Zero to fire point-blank Harkins to push Shockwave back, allowing the Black Nightmare to stand as Bumblebee came to his side. Guess this fight isn't as easy as you'd thought it'd be, huh Shockwave? Bumblebee told him. One of your big guys is already down. Even if you were to achieve victory in this battle, it would only be Pyrrhic at best. Shockwave replied. Your scattered allies cannot prevail against what we have sent against them. You may win this battle, but you will lose the war. Lelouch chuckled slightly. Remind me again why someone so logical is making the same mistake as his master. Elaborate. Shockwave replied. You and Megatron underestimate us. Lelouch told him. You underestimate humanity, thinking we're not as strong as the Autobots who fight beside us, but you couldn't be more wrong. When you push us into a corner, with nothing left to lose, and everything to gain, you'd be surprised at what we can accomplish. Come on out, where are you? Arkvale sang madly as he looked through the monitors, his cybernetic brain still directly hooked up to the machine, but he was unable to find any of the Autobot or Black Knight intruders throughout the entire Citadel. All this hide and seek is no fun if you don't show yourselves. Come on, come to Papa. Suddenly, the chamber shook, much to Arkvale's shock, especially as he saw the whole front wall break apart, along with all the monitors in front of him. He gasped to see Rai, Shirley, Millie, and Jeremiah all there, the three young Black Knights carrying rifles, and all aimed directly at him. Hello Arkvale. Jeremiah smirked in victory. Revenge is quite the savory dish, wouldn't you agree? I'd get off that seat if I were you. Joseph warned as he stood by his daughter's side, his arms crossed. The roof of the chamber, along with the machine on top, was also ripped apart, tearing away many of the cables attached to his cybernetic brain, causing Arkvale to scream in pain as he looked in genuine terror to see the glaring bulkhead holding the device in his hand. Unless you'd rather do this the hard way. Bulkhead stated as he crushed the machine in his enormous hand. Yes, my red pawns. Keep on fighting, Mad proclaimed with an insane grin as he continued to watch all the fights taking place all across the world. You fools, he said to the enemy force, despite the fact that they couldn't hear him. Even if you do take out a few of my creations, I can just focus more of my control on all those that remain, making my job that much easier. You can't possibly hope to. Mad's rant was interrupted as the ceiling of his own chamber was sliced open by a large metallic blade. He looked up in genuine surprise to see the Autobot medic that had cut open the hole to reveal himself. Quick and precise, Ratchet said, like any good doctor. Autobot. Mad glared. You will not destroy my work. You fools can't prevail against what I've created. You will not. He was silenced as a kunai was suddenly thrown into his forehead with enough force to pierce his skull and into his brain. Mad's body went slump as he died right then and there. Quick and precise, Sayoko repeated, standing on Ratchet's shoulder. Just as you said, Doctor. Excellent shot, Sayoko. Misty congratulated as she, Nunnally, Toto, and Rivals all stood underneath Ratchet. A bit overkill, Rivals commented. Shouldn't we have taken him alive? He was the one who put Alice and her friends through so much pain and suffering. Nunnally said with a glare. Though she wasn't the type of person to wish for anyone's death, she at least felt that Mad got what he deserved. And we just heard from Ryan everyone that Arkvale was captured. Toto added. I don't see any room for excess baggage. Damn, you girls are scary. Rivals shivered. Just like that, with Mad dead, his control to the red pawns all over the world was now broken. In that one instant, they all shut down. Antarctica. Chromia and Ironhide both looked in confusion as they saw the red pawn in front of them stop moving, becoming stiff like a statue. What the The veteran Autobot questioned as he and Chromia shared concerning glances and were slightly startled as another stiff red pawn fell on the ice beside them, breaking apart on contact. What's going on? Nonet questioned as the damaged Galatian hovered closer to them. They just stopped moving. Somehow, they're shut down. Chromia deduced. The recently severed head of the third and final red pawn rolled up to them on the ground as he decapitated body fell to reveal Wheeljack with his swords. I'm not complaining, and I'm not sticking around to wait for these guys to wake up. Wheeljack said. Good idea. Ironhide agreed as he fired his cannons to obliterate the stiff red pawn in front of him. Down below in the icy water, Warpath had managed to tackle the power headmaster unit and pin it to the ground before ripping off its right arm to ensure that it stayed down, despite the unit struggling underneath him. Sorry about this, kiddo. Warpath said. We'll get you out of there back at base. With Dalk secured, Tamaki's wrecker Akatsuki had its missiles locked onto the thought elevator. Suck on this, cons. Long live Japan. He fired his missiles straight at the thought elevator, causing it to go up in a glorious explosion. Area 18. All 6 red pawns were stiff as statues as half of them were on the ground, locked in various fighting positions such as attempting to deliver punches and kicks. The other half fell to the ground, unable to fly, and ended up greatly damaged upon impact. All the remaining Crimson Knights and Black Dragon units, consisting of Maribel, Shink, Ashley, Chiba, Uldren, Asahina, Jean, Sokia, Makira, and Leonhardt, looked in surprise and confusion as their nightmares were heavily damaged with several looking ready to fall apart at the seams. The hell? Ashley questioned before a relieved grin fell on his face. Damn, guess Lady Luck's still on our side. I don't know about luck or fortune, but we should take advantage of this. Shink stated as his Shenhu fired its slash Harkins to tear apart one stiff red pawn. You're right. Maribel agreed. Destroy them while they're depowered. Now's our chance. Meanwhile, within the cavern, Drift and Toto both came at the sides of the Lucretia's land units, bringing their respective blades toward her as she raised her gun arms to block their attacks. Even with both the Autobot and Zangetsu working together, the land unit seemed capable of holding them back. You can't win, I'll know your every position, Lucretia confessed honestly and reluctantly. Our position, perhaps, Toto commented as he grinned. But it seems your focus is that like any other human. Often distracted. Drift smiled. Lucretia's eyes widened as she turned around in shock to see the 2 mini-cons, Jetstorm and Safeguard, leaping high into the air to bring their weapons down on the thought elevator. For Master Drift, and all our friends and allies, be they Autobot or Black Knight. Safeguard lunged his Naginata multiple times into the monolithic structure. For Cybertron and for Earth, Jetstorm swung his nunchucks all over the surface of the structure as well. Their strikes were so precise and strong that the surface of the thought elevator began to collapse and break apart, exposing a bright red light from behind that shined out well past the cavern entrance, getting everyone's attention outside. The flash of light also served as a distraction for Lucretia, as she was forced to close her eyes. This momentary distraction worked in favor of her opponents as Drift and the Zangetsu quickly sliced their blades to sever the arms of the land unit, causing it to fall to its knees. You are beaten, it's over. Drift declared as he pointed his blade toward the critically damaged Nightmare. Surrender and you'll be taken into our custody. Toto added. Despite the failure of their mission, Lucretia couldn't help but smile. Maybe, just maybe, their plan had worked. Maybe she and her friends could finally be free after all. I surrender. Area 20. Ultra Magnus was quick to shoot and obliterate a stiff red pawn that had fallen into the shallow water below. Make sure they are all destroyed. I do not know what has happened but use it to your advantage. He said before shooting to destroy another that was at a distance away. With great pleasure, sir. Cornelia smiled as she used her Vincent to bisect one red pawn with Guilford sitting in the same cockpit behind her, his own Akatsuki having been destroyed during the battle. Kinda anticlimactic in my opinion. Smokescreen commented as he shot off the head of one red pawn in front of him. He heard a loud slam behind him and turned around to see a destroyed red pawn fall at his feet, with Prowl, and Chigusa who sat on his shoulder, giving him unamused expressions. What? Behind the waterfall, Geass had shot his Energon grappler at the Order unit, who tried to slice at it with her swords, only for the grappler to ensnare both blades and bring them together. Geass retracted his grappler, which caused him to be shot straight at Sancha, who gasped as Geass tackled her nightmare. The gathered momentum was enough to push her to the ground while Geass was on top. Go. Now. Geass ordered as the Florence Nero aimed its hadron cannons at the thought elevator at the very back of the cave. These devices were the sole reason for our conquest, for the destruction that we laid in our wake, and I was a part of that. Monica thought with a sad expression before steeling herself. But I have renounced the lies that is Britannia. Now and forever, I am a true knight of justice. And I will protect this world. She fired her nightmare's cannons, firing a condensed red energy blast that all but destroyed the thought elevator in the most explosive way possible. Geass gave an impressed whistle. Talk about flashy. Russian mountains. All the remaining red pawns fell and broke apart as they slid and rolled across the side of the mountains, and would keep falling until they either reached the bottom or were destroyed beyond all hope of repair. What? Shin questioned as he saw all his escort units literally fall apart. Now he was the only one left as Akito, Layla, Sideswipe, Ryo, Yukiya, Strongarm, and Ayano surround him from all sides, their weapons aimed at the hovering Thanatos. I don't know what happened, but I'm loving it. Ryo grinned. Not so tough now without your buddies, are you? Ayano also grinned. Shin Hyuga Shang, you are surrounded. Strongarm told him. Surrender. This will be your only warning. The cybernetic madman only tisked in annoyance. My apologies, Akito. He said to his brother. I know I said this is where we would part ways, but I'm afraid we'll have to settle this another day. I can see when the odds are not in my favor. The Thanatos fired multiple energon blasts from its shoulders all around, creating explosions on all sides and providing enough cover for Shin to fly straight up into the sky. Brother! Akito exclaimed in frustration as he tried to shoot him down, but he was already well out of range. Akito, let him go. Layla told him. Shang is not our mission. Layla's right, we have to destroy the thought elevator. Sideswipe said. Let's do it now, while we're in the clear. Yukiya gave a slight laugh. Grindcore's already on it. The large and green Autobot made his way towards the exposed thought elevator inside the cave as he eagerly pounded his fist into his palm. Hi Mr. Thought Elevator. Let me introduce you to my best friend, my right fist. Grindcore punched the thought elevator as hard as he could, shattering it in that one attack. London. Ogi and the aerial bots all watched as the red pawns fell into the water below. Despite not knowing what was happening, they all had a good idea of who might have been responsible. Optimus, Lelouch, you're always saving my ass. Ogi thought to himself with a relieved smile. In the river below, the last two red pawns didn't even need to be shut down as they had already been destroyed by Colin and RC. They just turned around to see Alita in her vehicle mode, driving straight for the Dark Mordred, who was also flying straight at her. But it wasn't Anya at the controls. Marianne, Anya tried to speak to her. Wait, she had to time this perfectly. Once she saw that Alita was close enough, she acted. Now, Marianne fired a hadron blast at the ground just in front of Alita, but this worked more to the pink Autobot's advantage as she transformed and moved in, her arm blades drawn as she sliced and decapitated the Dark Mordred, sliding past it samurai style as it fell to the ground. Did she do it? Anya asked. She did it. Marianne breathed a sigh of relief. We found the self-destruct device in the Dark Mordred's neck. By purposely creating an opening, we allowed that Autobot the chance to sever it. Shockwave can't touch us now. I can see why you were called Marianne the Flash. Anya said with a laugh in her head while Marianne laughed as well. They were finally free from Shockwave and could return to the sides of the people they cared for. Alita, is Anya? Suzaku asked as the Lancelot approached them. She's alright. Alita confirmed with a smile. This thing looks like it has an airtight cockpit, so she won't drown. We'll get her to base once we're done here. That's a relief. Suzaku smiled as he turned his Lancelot to face the thought elevator as the Gurren and RC made their way closer to him. Do you want this? RC asked him. I think we've all earned it. Suzaku said confidently. Got that right. Colin agreed earnestly. It was this because damn Geass cult thing that Britannia invaded Japan in the first place, and took so much from all of us. Now it's our turn to end this. Once and for all, RC declared. Megatron, Suzaku thought with a hardened expression of anger. This is it. This is the beginning of the end for you, and all your heinous plans. RC fired multiple energon blasts, the Gurren Surger claw through a sphere of radiation, while the Lancelot fired its Varus rifle. All three attacks struck the thought elevator, and quickly destroyed it. Horai Island. Multiple signals sprang to life on the screen of the Ark's bridge as the dead zones just vanished, almost simultaneously, alerting all the military officers as they read the reports they were instantly receiving. The dead zones have been clear. We're getting signals from all our teams. Everyone's coming back online. The wreckers are reporting their mission was accomplished. We have confirmation of the thought elevator in Area 18 being destroyed. The one in Area 22. Layla and her team are reporting the same thing. The thought elevator in London has been destroyed. Euphemia and everyone else above could only look in surprise and amazement as they not only heard all the reports, but even saw the signals of most of their teams come back online. I think they did it, Cecile said with a smile. Some way, somehow, they pulled it off, Rakshata commented. Lloyd gave his usual laugh. Just 5 minutes ago, we were in the worst-case scenario, but we pulled off a victory. Diethard looked more than a little ecstatic while Claus slumped in relief. Euphemia was tempted to shed tears of joy as she, Kagaya, and Nina, shared emotionally relieved looks, but they couldn't celebrate just yet. The operation wasn't over. TAI, commence extraction on all available away teams. Bring them home as soon as possible. Euphemia ordered as she wiped her eyes. Already on it, TAI reported. Fix it, can we contact Optimus, Zero, and everyone else at the Geass order? Euphemia asked. The signal is still partially scrambled, Fix It responded as he looked at a holographic screen of the communications network. But with all those dead zones clear, I think I can establish contact. Get to work on it as soon as possible. Euphemia stated. Nina, try and reach Rai, Nunnally, and their group. Get them as far away from that place as possible so we can bring them home. You got it. Nina was already typing away at her laptop. All that's left now is for Lelouch and Optimus to finish this. Euphemia said. And they're in the lion's den. Maybe so, but they're quite the lions themselves. Kagaya assured. They'll pull through. Especially when said lions have a flipping T-Rex by their side. Lloyd commented. Not to mention a sword and shield with godlike abilities. Rakshata added. The Nemesis. Megatron had just laid the finishing touches on his newfound weapon with one final pounding of the Forge of Solus Prime just as Soundwave entered the vault. Megatron and the others looked toward the silent Decepticon as he showed them all footage on his visor of the attack on the Geass order. Shockwave's base is under attack, Thundercracker exclaimed. And it seems Optimus is leading the charge with both the Star Saber and Sky Boom shield. Schneisel noted. I will deploy my Seeker Armada and, Starscream began. No, that will not be necessary. Megatron said as he laid the forge on the ground and picked up his newest creation. What he held was a massive broadsword that was curved and twisted with spiked edges along both ends of the blade. The handle was pitch black and spiked, like something a dark knight of fiction would use, while the blade itself glowed a dark purple that emanated the same aura as the substance that was used to make it. All the Decepticons, and even Schneizal, looked at the newly created weapon in a mixture of awe and dread. I will see to this task, myself. The leader of the Decepticons proclaimed as he sheathed his newly created weapon on his back. Lord Megatron, are you sure that is wise? Skybite asked. You haven't even tested your new weapon yet. This is the test, Megatron said as he proceeded to walk out of the vault with everyone else behind him. What better way to test my creation, than by pitting it against the very sword it was based off of? Once they all left the vault, the Forge of Solus Prime was once again left alone, the mallet of the hammer laying on the floor as its handle leaned against the anvil upon which Megatron had forged his new sword. But it wasn't quiet for long as Hot Shot slipped down from the ceiling and let himself quietly drop to the floor. He grabbed the forge and struggled a bit before he was finally able to hoist it up and over his shoulder. Come on, beautiful, Hot Shot said as he proceeded to make his way out. I think it's time for both of us to get out of here. Geass order. Grimlock had climbed to the top of a tipped-over structure with the Pegasus flying right next to him. Both turned around to see the driller was demolishing its way through everything in its path and getting closer with the intent to rip them to pieces. We're throwing everything we have at it and it's not slowing down. Alice exclaimed. Grimlock however remembered that when he fired his plasma breath down its throat, he did do some damage. So, its insides were vulnerable. The only problem was trying to deal the right amount of damage to truly destroy it. He glanced at the Pegasus as he saw it hovering, which caused him to get an idea. He remembered Swoop doing this with himself and a few of his teammates before, perhaps this could work. "Get me up high," Grimlock told her. What are you?" Alice questioned in confusion as the driller wormed ever closer. "Pick me up and fly straight up. Don't question it. Just do it," Grimlock yelled. Unable to think of anything else, the Pegasus grabbed Grimlock's left arm and flew straight up just as the driller reached the spot that they were at. It saw the pair fly up, causing the driller to worm its way into a nearby structure and curve straight up in an attempt at pursuing them. Alice had to kick her float system to maximum power to get as high as she could. Grimlock was so large and heavy that it was honestly a miracle she was even able to lift him at all. They got to a point where they were rather high, above nearly all the other structures in the immediate area, and the driller was nearing the top of the building that it drilled through. "I can't get you up much higher," Alice stated. "The strain is too much for the Pegasus." "You're fine now. Just drop me," Grimlock ordered. "What? Are you crazy?" Alice exclaimed. "Drop me," Grimlock yelled, his optics glowing bright red with anger, showing no room for argument. Scared by his tone of anger, she went against every fiber of logic in her body and dropped the Dinobot. As he fell, the driller curved its body to try, opening its mouth to catch and devour him. However, while in the air, Grimlock transformed into his T-Rex mode and unleashed his plasma breath once more, directly into the open mouth of the driller, burning away at its insides just as Grimlock fell in. The driller roared in agony as it felt all its insides burn away. Multiple explosions erupted from inside before its giant form was exploded near its head area, causing it to be essentially decapitated. All broken and destroyed parts of the driller fell to the ground in a heap as the structure it drilled through collapsed completely, creating a massive pile of broken metal and debris. Grimlock. Alice flew the Pegasus down to try and find him, scanning to locate his signal through the rubble. "Grimlock, where are you?" A blast of plasma shot up from the rubble beside her as the Dinobot's T-Rex mode burned and climbed its way to the surface. Once he was fully emerged, Grimlock gave a roar before he transformed back to normal, taking a moment to rest a bit. Alice heard him chuckle as he turned in her direction. "I think you humans would call that heartburn. Right?" The girl blinked owlishly for a second before she laughed. She laughed as if she had just been told the funniest joke in the world. "You really are crazy." The Agravain fired its Slash-Harkins and Hadron cannons at the Dark Queen, which sped up and around each of the blasts and projectiles shot its way, but as it flew up, the Byakugan came in and was close enough to fire its head-mounted Gefgen blaster, but right as he did, the Dark Queen swung its blade outward. Both attacks hit their mark as the head of Orpheus Nightmare was destroyed, and the Gefgen hit the Dark Queen, causing its systems to short-circuit and be rendered inoperable. Both units fell from the sky, but thankfully the Agravain was able to fly in and catch the critically damaged White Nightmare. "It's down. Get it before it recovers," Wizard stated. Chera's pink Akatsuki flew in, drew its katana and used it to quickly impale the Dark Queen before it even had a chance to recover. She made sure to pierce her weapon right in the central cockpit where the mutilated corpse of Marianne was. All sorts of thoughts and emotions went through Chera's head as she did that. "Lelouch, I don't know how you'll feel about this," maybe relieved at her body no longer being used like this. "But would you feel if you knew what she was really like?" Sarah thought sympathetically before a resolved look formed on her face. "Once we're done here, I'll tell you and Nunnally everything. You'll know the truth. I'm done hiding." With a swing of her katana, Chera's nightmare had almost completely sliced the Dark Queen in half as its left side was completely eviscerated. It fell to the ground in a broken heap, liquid dark energon spilling out like blood as the Dark Queen was finally destroyed. "No," VV said aloud, within the metallic frame of Nemesis Prime, he could feel it. Everything that had happened all at once. They're gone, all the thought elevators, all but this one, they're all gone. His eyes shook with terror and rage. Everything we worked for, what we spent years creating, all for nothing. Nemesis Prime's body surged with as much red energy as he could, preparing one final attack as he glared at Optimus Prime who stood in front of him, both sword and shield of the Primes still glowing in his hands. "Prime, Nemesis screamed. You've destroyed it all. He let loose a powerful explosion of surging red energy that encompassed the whole perimeter of the area they fought in. All the ruined structures and rubble around him were blown away and destroyed. However, Optimus brandished the Sky Boom shield to protect himself from the attack. The barrier projected by the shield allowed Nemesis' attack to wash over him like a river over stone. But, when all the smoke began to clear, Optimus lowered his shield to see that Nemesis Prime was no longer there. In fact, the ground where he once stood had been completely obliterated, leaving a massive hole that led underground. Shockwave was forced to find cover behind a pile of rubble as Bumblebee and the Shinkiro kept the onslaught of energy weapons on him. Though he would find a chance to return fire with his cannon, prompting the Black Knight leader and Autobot Scout to dodge and avoid the destructive blasts. Shockwave. Megatron made contact. Lord Megatron, the Geass order has fallen. Shockwave reported. Despite the plan I set in motion, all assets have been captured or destroyed. Zero, Prime, and their forces will find the thought elevator shortly. It no longer matters. Soundwave is sending a ground bridge to your location. Return to the Nemesis immediately. Megatron ordered. As you wish. Shockwave responded as a ground bridge portal appeared in front of him. A hadron blast from the Shinkiro blew away the cover that Shockwave was using, only to reveal a ground bridge portal that had closed that very instant. Damn, Lelouch cursed before contacting his allies. Shockwave has retreated. VV is gone as well, but I suspect he is still here. Optimus said. All remaining enemy forces have been destroyed. Zero. Wizard reported. But Orpheus' unit is too badly damaged to keep going. I'm sorry, but I can't help anymore. Orpheus apologized. No thank you, you've done enough. Lelouch replied. Wizard, escort Orpheus back to Horai Island. Get as far away from the Citadel and call for a ground bridge. The rest of us will look for VV and destroy the thought elevator. Understood. Wizard acknowledged. Nemesis Prime weakly limped underground, leaning his side against the wall as he slowly made his way toward his intended destination. Having exhausted a large majority of his own energon supply in that attack, the movements of the Nemesis Prime body had slowed considerably. Considering that the entire metallic frame, including the flow of energon, was now connected directly to his nervous system, it meant his own body had suffered immensely. Despite his immortality, it would take a considerably long time for him to recover, but that was only his organic form. The metallic body of Nemesis Prime couldn't regenerate, so he was literally dragging the near-drained body like a ball and chain. Optimus, Lelouch, damn you all. VV growled as his metallic frame tripped and fell on the ground. Kaiserin. He could sense his former contractor even, but not only that, being so close to the only remaining thought elevator, he could even sense the presence of someone else. Someone he worked so hard to cripple all just to spite that wretched Marianne. Even Nunnally. I worked so hard to tear it all down. How dare they build themselves back up? Nemesis Prime crawled on the ground, trying desperately to get to where he needed to. And before long, he found what he was looking for. The only remaining thought elevator, embedded in the wall, and so close to his position. Only one. I only need this one. VV strained as he continued to crawl toward it. CC is here. If I can get to it, I can use my power to make them all suffer. I'll send them all into a mental trap, then I'll grab CC, and force Ragnarok to activate. A childlike look of joy and relief fell on his human face as he thought of that. Charles, wait for me, I'm coming, we'll have our perfect world, we can still have it. And everyone else, this wretched world that Prime and Lelouch have tried to save, it can burn in hell. However, just before he could get to it, a ground bridge portal opened in front of him. Stepping out was the one that VV had wished he would never ever see again. Just the mere sight of him caused all joy and relief to fade away with terror. Why am I not surprised? Megatron mused as he literally looked down on Nemesis, the ground bridge closing behind him. Crawling on the ground like the insect that you are. Megatron. Quickly. Prime and Zero. They're on their way here. They'll be here any minute. Please. Help me. VV pleaded. I'm aware. Megatron dismissed. I have no intent of letting them have their way, nor you yours. You wanted to jumpstart Ragnarok, didn't you? That guess caused VV to gasp. Megatron sighed as he shook his head. I've grown rather tired of this, Victor. Truly, I never actually believed you were even capable of defeating Optimus or Lelouch, even with your newfound body. The fact is, despite all your treacheries and failures, I've allowed you to carry on this long because I took a certain delight in watching you constantly fall from the pedestal that you've placed yourself on. But you've finally become tiresome. Predictable. Megatron reached down to pick up the Nemesis body by the head and lift it up this level, right before he used his free hand to tear open the chest and expose the frightened immortal boy inside. You've hit rock bottom, the leader of the Decepticons told him. However, there is still but one more thing I need from you. Quote. Ratchet's vehicle mode continued to drive underground, while still carrying Nunnally, Rivals, Toto, Sayoko, Misty, and all the remaining scientists inside. Bulkhead, what is your status? Ratchet asked. We're just about out of the Citadel. Nice to have communications back up. Bulkhead said. Guess whatever we did to wreck their systems did the trick. The second you establish contact with base, call a ground bridge. Ratchet instructed. We're nearing the surface ourselves, so we shouldn't be that far behind. Over and out, Doc. Bulkhead responded. Rivals sighed in relief as he slumped back in his seat. I'm glad this whole thing is over. Let's not celebrate until we're out of here, Toto said, though she couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction. The Geass order is all but finished at this point, and she had a part to play. She can finally put it all behind her. And once this war was all done, she could spend the rest of her life with Aldrin and their family. We should be getting to the surface by now, Misty said as they saw an open cavern up ahead. Let's try and. However, the second Ratchet's ambulance mode entered the cavern, he saw something that made him suddenly skid to a halt, causing everyone inside to jerk and almost get flung forward. Sayoko even had to hold out her arm to keep Nunnally from flying, despite that she had a seatbelt on. Ah. Geez, Ratchet, the heck did you do that for? Rivals glanced out the window and was rendered silent. And the others weren't far behind either. Misty, Toto, Sayoko, and even Nunnally, all their eyes became wide like dinner plates, their mouths hanging open, and all the color drained from their faces. Standing in front of them, his glowing purple optics glancing upon them at their arrival with the gaze of the devil, with the broken and damaged form of Nemesis Prime lying flat on the ground behind him, and the sole surviving thought elevator on the wall near his side, was the one responsible for all of this. The one who sent this world spiraling into chaos, and responsible for so much death and destruction. It was the Lord and Master of all Decepticons. Megatron did not expect this arrival, but it seemed more like a pleasant surprise than anything else by the smirk on his face. Hello, Doctor. He recognized the vehicle mode of Ratchet. It's been quite some time. Megatron. Ratchet growled, but he didn't dare move without risk of endangering the humans inside, but he was ready to pull a full reverse at a moment's notice. I see you have company. Megatron could see the humans. Children by the looks of it, and there was one that stuck out the most, and one he recognized instantly. Oh, well, this is a pleasant surprise. Nunnally v Britannia. She almost felt her heart stop when he said her name. She had faced Decepticons before, and even a handful of deranged madmen. But this experience was something else. The dark and evil look in Megatron's optics was unlike anything she felt before. Just starting at him felt like she was looking at the devil himself. This was the same monster who not only killed so many innocent people, but also caused her brother so much pain and turmoil. She hated him with every fiber in her being, but right now, all she could feel was fear. You look so much like your mother. Megatron continued. But do not worry, I have no plans for you whatsoever, but I do have a request. He drew his dark and glowing saber that he had brought with him, making sure to have their full and undivided attention. What in the name of Primus? Ratchet muttered. Communications with your party should be restored by now, at the very least you should be able to contact your allies here. Megatron went on. Do me a favor and call your brother. He, Optimus, and I have a score to settle. Tell them where I am and that I'm waiting. Run along now, little one. He stepped to the side in a sense of false politeness, encouraging them to leave. Seeing a chance to flee, Ratchet wasted no time in gunning it. He sped as fast as he can, carrying all the frightened passengers as he fled down the underground tunnel that Nemesis Prime had crawled. Ratchet to base. We need an immediate ground bridge to our location now. The Autobot medic demanded. El Lelouch, Nunnally stuttered as she tried to contact her brother. El Lelouch, are you there? Nunnally. What's going on? Where are you? Master Lelouch, Megatron is here. Sayoko stated, placing a firm but comforting hand on Nunnally's to try and ease the terror she was feeling. What? Lelouch practically screamed on the other end. The very thought of his beloved sister being anywhere near that monster was probably giving him a heart attack. He's guarding the thought elevator, and he appears to have a new weapon, one that bears a striking resemblance to the Star Saber. Sayoko informed. He's waiting for you and Optimus. You all get out of there. Right now, Lelouch exclaimed. Don't have to tell us twice, we're already booking it. Rivel stated just as a ground bridge portal opened up in front of them. It seemed that Ratchet was indeed able to contact base, much to the relief of everyone else as they drove inside into safety. The Nemesis, Hotshot, had crawled through the ventilation system and had successfully made his way to the loading dock that would load and unload crates of Energon. He also dragged the Forge of Solus Prime with him and was lucky enough to avoid getting caught. Megatron probably said the vault where it was stored was off limits, so nobody would dare enter or else face his wrath. A part of Hotshot wished he could see the look on Megatron's face when he sees what happened, but now it was time to get out before he pressed his luck any further. The rookie wrecker saw at the center of the chamber was the massive hole that the extraction port would deploy from. He could see the clouds of the Earth sky. But when he pressed his foot, he felt him step on a shield, no doubt to keep any stray Energon crates from falling out. Looking around, Ratchet spotted a tube connected to the hole and up the wall to the ceiling, likely the Energon fuel line. If we're disrupted, he'd be able to get out. But that would likely alert the warship. Yet, it was his only option now. If they still call me a rookie after this, I'm gonna lose it. Hotshot said as he activated his Energon blaster and shot at the fuel line, causing a small explosion that short-circuited and deactivated the shield over the hole. Without wasting a second, Hotshot grabbed the forge and jumped, entering free fall. Hotshot to base. Please tell me that somebody can read me. The falling Hotshot accessed his comms. I have your signal, Hotshot. TAI responded. Your telemetry data doesn't appear to be making sense though. Probably because I jumped out of the cons, ship and now falling from the sky. Hotshot exclaimed. I need a ground bridge now, and I got some precious cargo with me. I'm opening a ground bridge directly below you. Brace yourself. A portal had opened up, one that the rookie Autobot and his precious cargo had now fallen into. Geass order. Optimus, the Shinkiro, Bumblebee, the Pink Akatsuki, Grimlock, and the Pegasus had gone underground and were prepared to enter a massive cavern, one big enough to hold a small city. Just got word back from base. Bumblebee reported. Nunnally and everyone made it back to Horai Island. Thank God. Lelouch breathed a sigh of relief along with Alice. Everyone else did their job too. All the thought elevators have been destroyed, Bumblebee added. All except this one, Alice stated. Then let's finish this, Grimlock said. You can certainly try. The group came to a stop as they saw their opponent walk towards them. The path that led to the thought elevator was behind him and he had no intent of letting them pass. Look at his arm, Lelouch said as his nightmares screens zoomed in Megatron's new appendage, something the others noticed as well. By the Allspark, Megatron, what have you done? Optimus exclaimed. This. The Decepticon leader showed his new arm. I find it affords me certain advantages. Such as the use of the Forge of Solus Prime. He cut off the arm of a deceased Prime so he could use the forge. Sarah thought with a glare. Considering he raised an army of the undead, I shouldn't be surprised. Yet he still finds ways to disgust me. Megatron then drew his dark and glowing blade and showed it everyone. My first creation, fashioned from the very blood of Unicron. I call it the Dark Star Saber. Slayer of Primes, if you will. He proclaimed before charging forward with a yell. Optimus glared as he drew the Star Saber and Sky Boom shield. All of you, stay back. I will handle this, he ordered his comrades as he charged forward. Without needing to be told twice, the group, including Grimlock, spread out across the massive cavern as they watched the battle ensue. Megatron swung the Dark Star Saber and, just like the blade it was based off of, it generated a powerful wave of dark purple energy as opposed to the bright blue the original carried. Optimus however quickly brandished the Sky Boom shield to protect himself, the dark wave washing over the bright barrier, while the remnants of the wave spread out blew away the much of the cavern wall around Optimus, much to the surprise of everyone present. Now it was Optimus' turn. He swung the Star Saber to send a horizontal energy wave of his own straight towards Megatron, who lifted the Dark Star Saber up and brought it down to slice the wave of light in half, both halves veering past him to blast through the cavern walls that were behind Megatron. Lelouch's eyes widened as he saw that. The Star Saber could cleave a mountain in half and might have blown the Nemesis out of the sky with just one hit, but Megatron was able to counter it. Did he truly make his own weapon that's just as powerful? Is this the power of the Forge? Megatron gave a yell as he swung the Dark Star Saber again, sending another dark wave toward Optimus, who sliced through that one with the Star Saber. Megatron then brought the Dark Star Saber down to send a vertical dark wave, which Optimus countered by bringing up the Sky Boom shield and charged right through, barreling through the destructive attack as he was unfazed, but more of the cave around them was beginning to break apart. Optimus was close to Megatron to get him with the Star Saber itself as he swung his bright blue sword at his friend-turned-enemy, who countered by blocking it with the Dark Star Saber. The second both blades clashed with one another, a powerful surge of light and dark energy surrounded the pair, one so powerful that Bumblebee and even Grimlock were pushed back slightly by the resulting shockwave. Even Lelouch and Alice struggled to keep their respective nightmares in the air as they kept as far a distance as possible. When they broke apart, the wave around Optimus and Megatron vanished, but Megatron was quick to attack again, swinging the Dark Star Saber at Optimus, who blocked it with the Sky Boom shield. Their collision was somewhat different than the swords as a bright barrier formed in front of Optimus, emitted by the shield, while a backlash of dark energy was emanated backwards from the Dark Star Saber. However, Megatron pulled back and tried to swing at Optimus' side, who blocked it with the Star Saber, creating another clash of conflicting energy. Optimus swung the Star Saber downward, which Megatron blocked with the Dark Star Saber, creating yet another clash. Megatron tried to lunge his evil sword at Optimus, who blocked it again with the Shield of the Primes, creating a backlash of dark energy from the thrust that split and went to opposite ends of the cave behind them. With each clash of their weapons, the city-sized cavern began to shake, so much so that it felt like the entire citadel above was hit by a magnitude 9 earthquake. Already much of the ruined Geass Order citadel above was beginning to collapse. What kind of battle is this? Alice shook with fear as they continued to watch the Star Saber and Dark Star Saber clash again and lock together, creating another surge of conflicting energies that rocked the whole cavern as multiple rocks fell to the ground around all of them. For one of the few times in his whole life, Grimlock was actually nervous. His fists clenched as his arms shook, trying hard to push back his nerves. I hate to admit, but I don't think I can win a fight like this. The Dinobot thought. As their swords locked, Megatron looked like he was having the time of his life as he grinned wildly and his purple optics only shined brighter. At last, we take our rightful places, Optimus, as gods. Wielding the power of the cosmos. Megatron broke off their lock and seized Optimus by the throat with his free hand before pushing him up and pinning him against a massive boulder that had fallen from the cave ceiling from their clash. Optimus grunted before replying, "I am but a soldier, Megatron. And you are a prisoner of your own twisted delusions." He activated the Sky Boom shield to bring up a large barrier. The force of it was enough to knock Megatron back and push him to the ground, allowing Optimus to stand upright. But Megatron swung the Dark Star Saber again to create another vertical wave of dark energy, but Optimus kept the shield's barrier up to protect himself as the wave broke apart around him and completely obliterated the wall behind him, causing it to collapse even more. Lelouch, this fight is crazy. Bumblebee communicated with his friend via their comms channel so Megatron couldn't hear. If they keep this up, the whole place is gonna cave in. I think Optimus already knows, but I doubt Megatron is going to let up because of that. Lelouch said with a growl. However, Sarah began to think. Something Megatron had said that had got her attentions. Gods, Her eyes happened to glance in the direction of the cavern that Megatron had exited from, the one that led directly to the thought elevator. She gasped as she was struck with an epiphany. Keep Megatron busy. Sarah told everyone via their comms. I have an idea, just keep him occupied as long as you can. What, Sarah? Lelouch tried to protest, but he already saw her nightmare flying along the side of the cavern to avoid the clash and straight towards her intended destination. He didn't know what exactly she was doing, but he trusted her judgment. You heard her. Keep that monster occupied. Optimus and Megatron clashed their respective sabers again, creating another surge of chaotic energy. When Megatron attacked again and Optimus blocked it with the Sky Boom shield, it created a very brief opening, one that Lelouch took full advantage over as he fired the Shinkiro's Hadron at Megatron's side, blasting him away from Optimus and causing him to roll on the ground. He got up to glare at the Black Nightmare. Be patient, boy. My Dark Star Saber will taste your blood soon enough. Taste this. He looked to see Grimlock's charging T-Rex form as he let loose a stream of plasma from his mouth. Megatron brought the Dark Star Saber forward to block the attack, but this left him open for Bumblebee and the Pegasus to come at him from behind, with the former firing his Energon blasters at Megatron's back, causing him to grunt and leave him open for Alice to speed her nightmare at him, slashing him repeatedly, but he reached out with his free hand to grab the Pegasus by the throat and throw it at Bumblebee, knocking them both down. Grimlock, still in his T-Rex mode, charged forward to deliver a powerful headbutt to Megatron before thrusting upward to send him up and crashing to the ground. Grimlock then tried to stomp on Megatron while he was down, but he rolled out of the way and swung the Dark Star Saber, forcing Grimlock to transform back as the dark energy wave passed over him. With him so close, Megatron swung the Dark Star Saber at his large enemy, who instinctively brought out his own massive broadsword to try and block it. Only for the Dark Star Saber to shatter it into a million pieces on contact, much to Grimlock's shock. Megatron sneered as he swung his Dark Star Saber again to send another dark wave, which Grimlock tried to protect himself with his shield, but that too was shattered as the force of the wave sent Grimlock flying and crashing to the other side of the chamber. The Shinkiro appeared directly in front of Megatron as Lelouch fired the Nightmare's chest-mounted cannon, sending a condensed and powerful beam at his enemy. But Megatron blocked it using the flat of the Dark Star Saber. The force of the attack did push Megatron back slightly, but Megatron was able to angle the Dark Star Saber so that the beam was reflected straight upwards, and it carved through the cavern ceiling. The attack stopped and Megatron immediately swung the Dark Star Saber to send a dark wave at the Shinkiro, but Optimus had appeared and used the Star Saber to slash through that wave so that it veered around him and Lelouch's Nightmare. The pair glared at the smirking Decepticon leader. However, it seems that Megatron hadn't even noticed Chera's Akatsuki approaching the thought elevator at the end of the chamber. Sarah noticed the stiff form of Nemesis Prime that was off to the side, but decided to focus more on the task at hand for the time being. Please, let this work, Sarah hoped as she focused her own powers. Her hair waved upwards slightly to reveal the Geass emblem on her forehead as it glowed a bright red, along with all the runes on the thought elevator. In a flash of light, Sarah and her Nightmare both suddenly vanished. The Sword of Akasha. One could consider this the entranceway to heaven, given that the surrounding environment appeared to be an endless golden sky with clouds and a bright light shining behind it. All that contradicted the cold and metallic framework of the hovering structure in the middle of it all. It was a large and metallic platform with a series of metal pillars at each corner of the platform that went straight upwards into the clouds, connecting to something hidden within that could not be seen. The pink Akatsuki suddenly appeared within this mysterious realm, with the pilot inside taking a brief second to look at the changed environment around her. Megatron did some remodeling, Sarah said to herself, remembering how when she, Charles, Vivi and Marianne would come here and the structure they'd enter appeared to be an ancient temple. So, he can enter this place now too. Well, it doesn't matter. There is only one thought elevator left, and that's all we need. Sarah activated her Nightmare's communications systems, hoping to reach home base. Sarah to base, come in. There appeared to be static on the other end at the moment. Oh please, somebody. Anyone on Horai Island please respond. She pleaded. Does anybody read me? Just barely, but I read you. Tai responded on the other end of the line, albeit with static. The immortal breathed a huge sigh of relief. Oh Tai, thank you. Can you lock onto my coordinates? Hang on, Tai paused before responding. This is unusual. Your Nightmare's signal is still coming from the Geass order, but it's fluctuating, it's coming in and out, like you're rapidly transiting from one spot to another. When you vanish for a second, I can't locate you. Can you open a ground bridge to my location? Sarah asked. I don't know. Try it, Sarah insisted. One moment, the wait was tortuous as each passing second felt like an eternity to the immortal. This had to work. It may be their only hope to not only end the threat of Geass once and for all, but even stop Megatron for good. Just then, a ground bridge portal opened right next to her nightmare. Yes, I have successfully activated a portal. TAI reported triumphantly. Although, I don't know for sure if it will lead you back at base. That doesn't matter, Sarah stated. This is enough. Enough for what? TAI, I need you to pay very close attention. Back at the Geass order, the cavern was a complete and total wreck. Shaken up by another energy shockwave as Optimus and Megatron clashed their respective sabers again. But with this clash, most of the ceiling had been completely obliterated, exposing the sunlight that shined down on the both of them as Optimus had leapt backwards from Megatron, allowing the Shinkiro and Pegasus to come up at his rear from above as they fired their long-ranged weapons to catch Megatron in an explosion, but both nightmares cleared the way as a horizontal wave of dark energy was sent out from the smoke and struck the ceiling, cleaving away more of it. Bumblebee drove up from behind Megatron as fast as he could before transforming and leaping onto his back, wrapping his right arm around Megatron's neck while pounding at his face with his left fist. Megatron however was able to wrench him off with his own free hand and toss him to the side. But once he was tossed, Grimlock charged forward to grab Megatron and continue his charge and slam him into the wall. Grimlock grabbed Megatron's new arm that held the Dark Star Saber to keep him from using it as he pounded Megatron repeatedly. However, Megatron was able to headbutt Grimlock, which was enough to loosen his grip and allow Megatron to slash at Grimlock's chest with the Dark Star Saber, knocking him down. Though a wave attack hadn't been unleashed, the slash left a deep gash across Grimlock's chest that caused a great deal of damage. Megatron raised his Dark Star Saber to try and finish off the Dinobot while he was down, but Optimus quickly came in with the Sky Boom shield to protect him. We're throwing everything we have at him, but this monster won't stay down, Alice exclaimed. Lelouch tried desperately to think of any kind of strategy to end this fight here and now. If Megatron escapes from here with the Dark Star Saber, he could easily destroy the Autobot Black Knight Alliance all by himself. Earth would be his for the taking. Lelouch, Optimus, Sarah contacted them. Sarah, what is it? Lelouch asked. I need you two to lure Megatron to the thought elevator, Sarah stated. Bumblebee, Alice, Grimlock, you three get back to base. We can handle it. Hold on Sarah, what are you? Lelouch tried. No time to explain. Just trust me. Seeing no other ideas, Lelouch decided to trust her once more. He fired the Shinkiro's Hadron cannons at the cavern wall above and behind Megatron, causing it to collapse as Optimus and Megatron locked their respective sabers. Optimus noticed the incoming rockslide and kicked at Megatron's feet to trip him up before jumping backwards just as the rocks fell and pilled over the downed Megatron. Optimus had also heard Chera's request and decided to trust her as well. Bumblebee, Grimlock, Alice, return to base. We will deal with Megatron. You heard him, big guy. Bumblebee said as he and the Pegasus helped the injured Grimlock to stand on his feet. Let's get out of here. Damn it all, Grimlock growled as he limped away with his escorts. Don't think this means I owe you, Optimus. Grimlock called out to him. Let's go, Lelouch said to Optimus, who nodded in response as they quickly made their way toward the thought elevator just as Megatron emerged from the rock pile. He noticed the pair of his enemies head in that direction as well before running in pursuit of them. Optimus and the Shinkiro made it toward the thought elevator where the pink Akatsuki was waiting for them. They noticed Nemesis Prime lying flat on the ground as well. What about? Lelouch was about to ask. We'll worry about that later, Sarah quickly said. I trust you have a plan, Optimus said to Sarah as he took notice of his weapons. The Star Saber may not be able to handle much more, and the Sky Boom shield won't be far behind either. I know, and I do, Sarah confirmed as they saw Megatron enter the chamber. The second he was within range, Sarah activated her powers again. The Geass emblem on her forehead glowed once more, followed by the ruins on the thought elevator, right before all four of them vanished in that one instant. Optimus Prime, Lelouch in the Shinkiro, Sarah in her Akatsuki, and even Megatron all appeared within the Sword of Akasha. This sudden change in location took all of them, excluding Sarah, by surprise as they each looked around for a brief moment. Wha, what? Lelouch stuttered in shock. What is this? Where are we? Optimus questioned. The Sword of Akasha. Megatron noted as he faced them all, the dark star saber glowing in his hand. A pocket dimension only accessible via thought elevators. Its origins are still largely unknown, but it will serve its purpose for me. He glanced at the pink Akatsuki as its cockpit opened up, allowing Sarah to stand up straight as she faced Megatron directly. CC. By bringing me here, you've only hastened my plans. In fact, Neo Ragnarok can begin right now, he said with a sneer. Neo Ragnarok? Lelouch questioned. Even Optimus looked with narrowed optics. He heard from Sarah about the Ragnarok connection that Charles and Vivi had planned, and it seems that Megatron was indeed using it to his own advantage. No, Megatron, Sarah said with an ironclad expression and a fiery look in her eyes. This is where the influence of Geass ends altogether. Here, in your eternal tomb. She quickly turned on her communications again. TAI now. Suddenly, a ground bridge portal opened on Megatron's left side, causing him to look in minor confusion. He had expected an attack to come at him from this portal, readying the Dark Star Saber for whatever may emerge. But, he did not expect a second ground bridge to open up behind him on his right side, with the Decepticon leader himself being caught in between. Two ground bridges, but why? Lelouch's eyes widened in surprise as he understood right then and there what Chera's intent was. If we can't stop him, we can at least trap him. Sarah stated. Optimus. I understand. The last of the Primes knew as well what was about to happen as he saw streams of energy leaking from the edges of each ground bridge portal and connecting to one another, creating a vortex with Megatron caught in the middle. Optimus quickly activated the Sky Boom shield again and projected a barrier around himself and his two human friends to brace for the inevitable result. Megatron felt his body being pulled in two separate directions and unable to move. He couldn't even swing his arm to use the Dark Star Saber in his hand. He struggled as hard as he could, but he was unable to break free of this predicament. He glared at Sarah, who narrowed her own eyes at him. No, he would not let it end like this. He couldn't jumpstart Neo Ragnarok unless he made physical contact with her. But he can at least make her suffer. With all the rage and hatred that he could muster, Megatron's already purple optics shined even brighter. But as they shined, Sarah noticed a dark purple glow coming from Megatron's hand. Specifically, from the palm of the stolen hand of Liege Maximo that held the Dark Star Saber. She couldn't see what it was, but she felt an odd and familiar sensation from it. What is? Suddenly, the Geass emblem on her forehead began to glow dark purple as well before she screamed in agony. Sarah! Lelouch exclaimed just as his Geass and that of Optimus both activated, but not of their own volition. In that one instant, Optimus, Megatron, Lelouch, and Sarah all their minds bombarded with a series of images. They saw ancient civilizations of both Earth and Cybertron, both planets circling around the very center of the galaxy as it spun rapidly like a spiral of light. A flash of blue light showed 13 Cybertronian figures standing tall as the one in the middle wielded the Star Saber in his hand. A flash of dark purple light showed wars and battlefields of fire and blood where humans slaughtered each other left and right, with the image of a transparent skull with a Geass emblem on its forehead floating above the war zone, laughing. They saw an image of humanoid beings covered in shadows weakly walking in one direction, toward a flash of light of which sparks of multiple colors flew out to encompass all of them. Finally, there was a face. A face made entirely out of stone. Its features were barely visible, save for two curved horns on its head, and the glowing purple eyes that look as if they could destroy your very soul with just one glance. Flash. Asterisk. An explosion erupted in between the active ground bridge vortex that appeared to encompass everything and everyone standing on the platform. Megatron shook his head, rubbed his hand on his face as he tried to steady himself, his vision slowly returning as he stopped seeing spots. He looked around to see that he was still in the exact same spot as before, standing on the platform in the Sword of Akasha, the Dark Star Saber still in hand, and his enemies right in front of him. Optimus had lowered the Sky Boom shield as the Shinkiro's cockpit opened up, to reveal Lelouch as he and Optimus both turned their attention to Sarah, who had fallen back to the seat in her cockpit in unconsciousness. Megatron chuckled as he saw his enemies were vulnerable and ripe for the killing. He stepped forward and spoke. I do not know what that was, but it seems you failed. Now, it ends. He raised the Dark Star Saber and tried to bring it down on Optimus. Only for the evil sword to phase right through him. What? Megatron screamed, his optics widened in clear shock. The Dark Star Saber went right through Optimus like he wasn't even there. He frantically looked towards Lelouch and slashed the Dark Star Saber at his nightmare, but just like with Optimus, the sword went right through like he was slashing through air. How can this be? Megatron questioned as he tried to grab Sarah directly with his free hand, only for his hand to phase through both her and her nightmare. He watched as Lelouch leapt from his cockpit and into Cheras via his Zero armor and checked her. She's still breathing, just unconscious. He said to Optimus, both of them appearing to ignore the Decepticon that was right in front of them. I do not see Megatron. Optimus revealed, much to Megatron's own shock. I believe it worked. What worked? Megatron himself questioned. He tried to reach to Optimus again with his hand, but it phased through once more. Megatron. Lelouch spoke out, getting his attention as the young human wasn't even looking in his direction. Allow me to welcome you to the Shadow Zone. For it is here where you will be spending the rest of eternity. Shadow Zone. Megatron wondered. Goodbye, Megatron. Optimus spoke out as well. I wish you had chosen a different path. In a flash of light, just like how they all entered, Optimus Prime, the Shinkiro and Lelouch, along with Sarah and her own nightmare, all vanished from the Sword of Akasha. Leaving Megatron completely alone, the only thing still with him being the Dark Star Saber, and nothing more. Anger boiling inside him once more, Megatron clenched the Dark Star Saber in his hands before he let loose a scream of rage that would echo throughout the entire pocket dimension. The second they returned to the Geass order, Optimus Prime thrusted the Star Saber into the Thought Elevator, destroying it right then and there as he pulled it out. Lelouch held Sarah in his arms, both out of their respective nightmares, breathed a sigh of relief as he saw it happen. TAI, the Thought Elevator within the Geass order has been destroyed. Can you confirm the same for the others? Optimus requested. All away teams have returned to Horai Island and report the same thing, Optimus. TAI responded. All the thought elevators at each of the locations have been destroyed. That's it then, that's all of them. Lelouch felt a huge weight off his shoulders, not just at the success of their mission, but something he didn't think they could accomplish so soon. And that means, Megatron is trapped in the Shadow Zone, within in a different dimension. I think he's gone for good. Let us not state that with certainty, just yet. Optimus advised. But how did we get out of there? Lelouch wondered. I didn't even know about that place until now, and neither did you. Do you think that? He looked to the still unresponsive Sarah in his arms. She somehow did it. She was the one who brought us there, it stands to reason she had pulled us out as well. Optimus said. Lelouch glanced the unconscious Sarah briefly with concern before turning to the stiff frame of Nemesis Prime that remained where it was since they found it. What about him? Optimus walked over to the metallic frame that greatly resembled himself. Once he was close enough, he saw the chest had been torn open, with VV, still hooked up to multiple devices and machines inside, laying completely still and unresponsive. Was he dead? If so, he may not be for much longer. We will take him to Horai Island, where he'll be put into stasis until we find a more permanent solution. Optimus said to Lelouch. A weak groan got their attention as Lelouch looked to see Chera's eyes fluttering slightly. Sarah, her eyes opened and she gave a slight gasp once she saw him. It's all right, it's over. Megatron's trapped. We did it. Who are you, sir? Sarah asked as she sat up. What? Sarah, it's me. It's Lelouch, he said looking surprised and confused. She backed away nervously and out of his arms. Are you my new master? I can clean, and help prepare food for cooking, I can also fetch water and, she heard large footsteps coming her way, drawing her attention toward Optimus. The second she saw him, she screamed and covered herself with her arms, holding herself in tightly. What is that thing? Please, whatever you are, don't hurt me. Lelouch and Optimus both looked towards each other in genuine shock. They don't know how or why it happened, but some way, somehow, Sarah had lost her memories. The United Federation of Nations. Multiple Decepticons had gathered together on the bridge of the Nemesis, among them included Starscream, Schneisel, Shockwave, Knockout, Steeljaw, the Cybernetic Shin, Onslaught, Mixmaster, Skybite, Knockout, Thundercracker, and Barricade, as well as multiple Viacons. Soundwave is also present, but he was at the monitor and appeared to be more focused on that particular task than this meeting. Fellow Decepticons, Starscream began. It has been 1 Earth week since the disappearance of our master, Megatron. And while our loyalty to him has always remained steadfast, his absence has served as the best kind of invitation for our enemy to grow. The Autobots and their Black Knight companions are well underway to uniting the rest of this wretched planet against us, and it may be only a matter of time before we lose it all. With that being said, I believe new leadership is in order. Oh, and let me guess, it'll be you, right? Knockout assumed. The last time you took charge, it was a disaster. Onslaught reminded. You couldn't even lead us properly on Cybertron, how do you expect us to take you seriously now? Starscream growled, but Schneisel used this opportunity to speak up. You are correct to be concerned, Onslaught. After studying the war on Cybertron, I have seen moments where Starscream's leadership skills are, for a lack of a better term, inferior compared to Megatron. No offense. He quickly said that last part to the glowering Starscream. Which is why the two of us have proposed an idea that I'm sure all sides would benefit. And what would that be? Barricade asked. A council, of sorts. Schneisel explained. As Starscream is second in command, military leadership would logically fall to him in Megatron's absence. But, I also feel that with a small group of Decepticon commanders working alongside him, we make our decisions together. We debate and discuss plans and come up with a compromise that we feel could best suit our cause. A council. Skybite thought for a moment. I think I can get behind that. What about Lord Megatron? Steeljaw asked. Do we simply abandon our search? There are also many Decepticons here who probably won't like the idea and are still fanatically loyal to Megatron. Thundercracker added. Despite Soundwave working around the clock this past week, he's been unable to locate Megatron's signals since his departure to intercept the enemy at Shockwave's laboratory. Schneisel said as he gestured to the aforementioned Decepticon who continued to work. He is either permanently offline or has chosen to abandon us. Neither is in the best interest of the Decepticons, especially as the Autobots and Black Knights continue to grow, using Megatron's absence to their advantage. Our enemy, however, is not simply the Autobots or the Black Knights. Shin spoke up. Humanity as a whole has chosen to resist us. Even if we destroy those that directly oppose us, they can easily be made into martyrs, which will only provoke further resistance. Oh, we most certainly agree. Starscream said with a sneer. Which is why Shockwave and the Constructicons have been working on a special project that will be most sufficient in finally wiping that pathetic species off the face of this planet. Shockwave and Mixmaster stepped forward as the former held out a disc that projected a holographic image of what appeared to be a giant hovering station. The Damocles is a heavily armed war station, its primary weapons being fusion cannons which contain enough firepower to desolate any densely populated area of our choosing. Shockwave explained. My Constructicons and I have been working on it since our arrival on Earth. Mixmaster added. It nears completion and should be ready to be deployed from Newtown soon. With this weapon, we can lay waste to every major city on Earth. Starscream stated for all Decepticons to hear. We'll exterminate humanity in droves and scorch the surface of the planet. Once we've taken every scrap of Energon, we'll leave this wretched ball of dust behind and begin our domination over the entire universe with no one left to stop us. Of course, we will need your assistance in this endeavor. Schneisel said in a more sincere tone. Let this be our first motion to vote on our next move. Those who are in favor in allowing Starscream to ascend to military commander, and establish this council. It took a moment as most Decepticons spoke amongst themselves. But one by one, nearly all of them raised their hands to vote in favor. From Knockout, to Skybite, to Thundercracker, to Steeljaw, to Mixmaster, to Barricade, and even Shin. Each for their own reasons, but mostly because they needed leadership in order to keep up the fight or else risk losing the war entirely. The only ones who weren't in favor appeared to be Shockwave, Onslaught, and Soundwave, who still continued to work. But the majority ruled in favor, and with that, it was decided. All hail, Starscream. The head seeker sneered as Schneisel could barely contain his own sinister smile. Horai Island, 1 week prior. Lelouch and Optimus had returned to their base after defeating Megatron and destroying the Geass Order. They had brought Sarah to medical where doctors were looking after her and trying to figure out the source of her amnesia. They were asked to come to the bridge of the Ark, where Nunnally, Sayoko, and Jeremiah currently were, who had been invited by Anya Alström. However, what came about from this meeting was something that none of them could ever expect. The young revolutionary, former princess, cybernetic soldier, female bodyguard, even the Autobot leader himself, they did not expect Anya to speak and introduce herself with another name, one that none of them had expected to hear. "Why, you're our mother," Lelouch stuttered, looking at Anya, who had the red rings of Geass in her eyes as Marianne was currently in control. He looked ready to stumble backwards in disbelief, but Sayoko was quick to catch him. "It really is me, Lelouch," Marianne confirmed, with the face of Anya becoming emotional as she looked at the face of her son, and that of her shocked daughter. "Nunnally, your eyes, they're every bit as beautiful as when you came into this world." Nunnally had no idea what to say. Was this really hers and Lelouch's mother? How? It shouldn't be possible. However, Jeremiah placed a firm hand on Nunnally's shoulder and spoke in a calmer tone. "Marianne v. Britannia was killed 8 years ago," he said, looking somewhat distrustfully. "I know because I was there. I saw her body filled with holes, bleeding as she tried to protect her daughter. While Anya Alström was under Shockwave's cruel torment for more than 6 months since the fall of Britannia, and I can personally attest to the fact that he would resort to any method to see to the destruction of his enemies." "I would have to agree." Optimus spoke up as well. "If you are truly who you say you are, and this is not a trick orchestrated by Shockwave, we will need proof." She knew this was coming. Of course, they'd be skeptical. But, she already knew what to say. "Do you two remember that one time? When Anticlea was harassing you?" Marianne began to her children. "She was mocking Nunnally, while you Lelouch tried to stand up to her and, she kicked you in the chin. She spoke that last part with disdain. Do you remember what I did in response to that? You piloted the Ganymede into the courtroom and scared her off." Lelouch recalled. But then he looked skeptical. Then again, such a fiasco was huge news, anyone could have known that. "Alright, then what about that one night where Euphemia stayed with us?" Marianne asked. "The 4 of us laid on the grass and gazed up at the stars, but right after that, when you were about to go to bed," she giggled. "Nunnally and Euphemia got into a fight over which one of them would marry you when you'd grow up, and put you on the spot by making you choose right then and there." She laughed even more. "Your face was so red it was adorable. But then, 5 minutes later, all 3 of you fell asleep together." She smiled lovingly. That was really all they needed to hear. Nobody else knew about that. Maybe Cornelia, but only because Euphemia told her at the time. That was a private moment shared by only them, nothing noteworthy of anyone else in the royal family. And it was something the only adult present at the time would know. Nunnally covered her mouth as tears flowed from her eyes, even Lelouch shook in his spot. There was no doubt about it. This really was their mother, Marianne v. Britannia. She even reached out with both her hands to caress the cheeks of her children as tears of joy fell from her own eyes. "You've both grown up, so much." Nunnally leapt forward and wrapped both her arms around the body shared by Anya and her mother, burying her face in her shoulder and crying her eyes out as Marianne didn't hesitate to return the embrace. Sayoko and Jeremiah shared shocked expressions among themselves. Lelouch fell to his knees in disbelief, unable to process all of this at once, instinctively glancing up to the surprised Optimus, wondering what he should do, but for one of the few times in his life, even the last of the Primes was unsure of what to do. How? Lelouch questioned. How is this even possible? Geass. Marianne revealed as she and the emotional Nunnally parted ways. I'm a contractor of CC. That got their attention. But the Geass she gave me is not like any of the others. I can't call upon it like most other powers. Marianne explained. In fact, it can only be activated at the moment of my death. It allows me to transfer mine to the body another person through direct eye contact. Anya just happened to be there at the time. CC had given you a Geass? Optimus asked. And you have been inside the body of Anya Alström all this time? That is correct. Marianne confirmed. But, why? How are we only hearing of this now? You were alive, this whole time. Lelouch was starting to sound rather angry, much to his sister's distress. Lelouch. Nunnally tried to speak to him. No, it's all right. Marianne assured. Lelouch, do you know who it was that tried to kill me? The one who crippled Nunnally. VV, also known as Victor Z. Britannia. Lelouch scowled. Charles's brother. Yes, Marianne confirmed. After that incident, Charles used his own Geass, which VV had given him, to alter the memories of everyone who was at the estate that night. That included you, Nunnally, Jeremiah. She glanced up at the aforementioned man, who was in shock at this revelation. And even Anya. He had to wipe all mention of his brother's existence in order to keep his plans for Ragnarok under wraps. But since I was also in there, I was subjected to that as well. Our powers, kinda glitched together. Glitched? Optimus questioned. 2 Geass powers were being used on one person. Marianne tried to explain. It's the best way I can explain it, but it was because of that Anya had memory trouble. By the time I had made sense of what was happening, it was already too late. Japan had been invaded and, I thought you two had died. There was little I could do without the risk of revealing myself and incurring VV's wrath. But I am so sorry, to both of you. She said to her children. Lelouch still wasn't sure what to make of all this. A lot of what she said did make sense based on what he and his friends already knew, but it still seemed like he needed some convincing as there were still questions to ask. But then you and the knights came to Ashford. He remembered. Yes, but I didn't expect to see you or Nunnally there. Marianne choked up a bit, this part being a lie, but she couldn't tell the truth just yet. I was so happy to see you, both of you. Why didn't you say anything then? Nunnally asked. I didn't think you'd actually believe me if I did. She replied. I didn't know you were involved with Geass or anything. But CC was there. Lelouch said. If you formed a contract with her, why didn't you approach her? Because VV was also there. Marianne revealed. By the time the Knights and I were sent to Area 11, VV went there in secret to make sure the Autobots wouldn't mess with the thought elevators. If he knew I was still alive, he would tear Ashford to the ground and kill you two along with me and Anya. You've all seen what he's like, and you know how far he would go. That much was true. Everyone present knew how shallow and psychopathic VV was. Destroying Ashford and killing everyone in his way to get what he wanted was certainly something they would see him doing. Is Anya aware of all of this? Does she know about you? He questioned. She wasn't aware at the time. Marianne replied. It wasn't until after the fall of Britannia that I tried to work with her. That and a little help with Prime's Geass. She glanced up to Optimus before continuing. I helped to piece together her memories and we found a way to work together. We worked with Alice's friends and everyone who was being held by Shockwave and, now here we are. Is Anya herself aware of what is happening now? Optimus asked. Yes. Marianne confirmed. We've established a link that even if one is in control of this body, the other can still see and hear everything around us, and we can switch between one another at will. We can even communicate with each other telepathically. Is there a way you can be separated from her? Optimus asked. No. Marianne shook her head. As I said, my Geass can only be activated at the time of my death, or the death of the body I'm currently inhabiting. I can only transfer my mind if Anya dies, but I can't take her mind with me, only my own. That's horrible. Nunnally gasped. Yes, it is. Marianne confirmed with regret. It's not the power I chose, it's just how it happened. I've been equipped with a Geass canceller. Perhaps I can be of assistance, Jeremiah offered. That would probably erase myself entirely. Marianne said. We'll think of a way. Lelouch said. We'll think of a way to have you and Anya separated. She's been through enough. She has. And she says, thank you. Marianne said. Also, I am so sorry, Lelouch. I'm so sorry that I wasn't there for you or Nunnally when you needed me. But, I promise, right here and now, I'm on your side. Anya and I both talked and agreed to fight alongside you, the Autobots, and all your friends. Please let me join you and, finally be here for you. She touched Lelouch's face with both her hands, just as she had done so with him as a child. I love you, so much. And I am so proud of you. Lelouch could tell that even though those weren't his mother's eyes, that she was dead serious about this. She was serious about helping him and wanting to be here for him. After so many years, he wanted to find out who killed his mother and avenged her. And he had. He learned who the culprit was and brought him to justice. But now, a miracle has happened. His mother was not only alive, but she wanted to be by his side. Seeing her smile and look at him the same way all those years ago finally brought him to tears. Right as he cried, he fell to his knees as Marianne pulled him in close and held him tightly as he wept. Nunnally also wasted no time in hugging both her brother and mother as she cried too. A smile had formed on Optimus' face, truly happy for this reunion. He and Sayoko both shared happy expressions with one another as the ninja maid wiped a tear of joy from her eye, feeling the same way Optimus did. Jeremiah then kneeled before the trio, catching Marianne's attention. "I failed you in the past, Lady Marianne. I swore to protect you, but I failed. However, I have taken a new vow, that I would protect Lelouch and Nunnally with every fiber of my being. That is a vow I have no intention of breaking. And, if you would allow me, I would like to renew my vow to you, to serve and protect you." Marianne smiled and gave a nod. "Thank you, Jeremiah." End flashback. Horai Island, present day. Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, RC, Bulkhead, Ironhide and Ratchet were all together on the bridge of the Ark as TAI appeared before them. Everyone, Ultra Magnus, Elita 1, Ogi, Toto, and Cornelia have all returned from their scouting missions. The holographic girl reported, "Nearly all Decepticon activity across the planet has ceased. Most of their forces have retreated from the conquered areas once held by the now-defunct Britannia and have reconverged within the main continent." "Excellent work, TAI." Optimus nodded. "Monitor all communications and keep us informed. Be certain to send this data to Lelouch as well." "Got it." TAI nodded before disappearing. "Huh, so the cons are all running, huh?" Bulkhead said with a grin. "Looks like we really scared them off. It would also mean that Megatron could actually be gone. For good, this time." RC said with a relieved smile. "Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves." Ironhide put in. "We had thought Megatron was destroyed after Metroplex crushed him, remember how that turned out?" "Yes, but now the circumstances are different." Ratchet said. "Megatron is trapped in the Shadow Zone, within a pocket dimension that can only be accessed by the thought elevators, and we have confirmation that they've all been destroyed. The odds of Megatron escaping something like that are highly unlikely. Even if Megatron is truly gone, the Decepticons still remain an active threat." Optimus said. "Starscream, Schneisel, Soundwave, Steeljaw, Shockwave, and many others. They have each proven to be incredibly dangerous and unpredictable. The war is still far from over. But knowing how big Screamy's ego is, and how even his own side doesn't like him, we might get some infighting which is only gonna end up helping us." Bulkhead commented. "And the UFN will be officially formed today." RC added. "All of Earth's military forces will be united alongside us and the Black Knights. We'll have more than enough firepower to take down the Decepticons. Not to mention the upgrades we've received thanks to the Forge of Solus Prime." Ratchet said as he remembered just days ago seeing Optimus himself wield the mighty hammer to do amazing things. "The Star Saber and Sky Boom Shield were old and ancient by the time we had found them, but thanks to the Forge's power, they're both as good as new. Horai's defenses, as well as the upgrades to the select few nightmares." And, Ratchet paid a brief glance to a certain scout before smiling. "Oh, how the work of the ancients continues to astonish me." Bulkhead chuckled. "You're kinda starting to sound more like Lloyd, Ratchet. You sure you don't want some alone time with that hammer?" That only caused Ratchet to grumble as most Autobots shared a laugh. "Hey, it's been a while since we had this whole gang back together, ya know. The original team. The Autobots that made first contact with Lelouch, Ogi, Colin and everyone else. Shinjuku seems so long ago, doesn't it?" RC said with a reminiscent look in her optics. Who would have thought a small group of Autobots, and ragtag bunch of humans could cause so much change? Even Optimus couldn't help but smile at that. It was true, what started off as something so small had become so large. People and beings so different have now come together to build a better world than the one that was left behind for them. Though Optimus has long since accepted that the Autobots and Decepticons as a whole may never truly mend their ways, it brings him such joy to see that humanity still has chance for a brighter future than the old Cybertron ever has. But, he still had hope that one day soon, Cybertron would live again, and a new generation would learn and grow from the failures of the old one. Lelouch's quarters. The young revolutionary didn't bother hiding his laughter as he got the reports from TAI. Someone's in a good mood. Colin pointed out, walking to the chair that he sat in as he looked at his handheld monitor. It's done, look at the reports. Lelouch showed her. Nearly all Decepticon forces have retreated to the former Britannia. Their actions have shown that Megatron is absent. He's still trapped. Course that's still a massive bulk of metal we gotta plow through. Colin said. Not to mention the other top-ranked cons that are still out there. I know. Lelouch acknowledged. The Decepticons are still a threat, but at the very least, I'm content to know that Megatron can never harm anyone I care for ever again. He laid back with a smile. Colin herself couldn't help but smile with him. She knew what he was going through, the intense relief and joy one felt after exterminating a demon that hurt you in the one place you couldn't reach. She and RC both felt that same kind of relief when they killed Arachnid. Of course, the thought of Megatron being gone also made her happy. She leaned on the back of his seat as she slowly wrapped her arms around him, gently around his neck. He gazed upwards to see her looking down on her with the kind of smile that he'd only get from her, which only caused his smile to brighten even more. They were so caught up with each other that they almost completely forgot somebody else was in the room with them. What should I be doing now? The amnesiac Sarah said from behind. Let's see, how about maybe sing a song? Lelouch said somewhat absent-mindedly, not taking his eyes off Colin. And maybe dance with your clothes inside out too. Colin added in the same way, as she also couldn't avert her gaze from Lelouch either. Yes, right away. They both finally turned from each other and looked behind to see Sarah was preparing to undress herself, much to their shock. Wait, no, that was just a joke. Lelouch exclaimed as they broke off, but upon that exclamation, Sarah sank to her knees and held her arms in front of her face like a frightened child. I'm sorry. Please don't hit me. Colin almost couldn't believe it. Is this really the same Sarah? She remembered the first time she met her and how cynical she was before becoming a mighty warrior in their ranks and a trusted ally, even friend. But now, seeing her scared and timid like this, she just couldn't find the words. Lelouch was the first to slowly kneel to her level and speak calmly, like how Optimus would speak. It's all right. No one is going to hurt you. Sarah slowly looked towards him. I promise, Sarah. You're among friends here, friends who care about you. The door to his quarters opened as Anya walked in, causing Sarah to back away in slight fright. It's okay, Colin assured as she slowly walked in front of her. She's a friend. This did seem to cause Sarah to calm down a bit, though she did hide cautiously behind Colin. You wanted to see me. Sorry to keep asking this, but who am I talking to, right now? Lelouch asked to be sure. Right now, it's Anya. Do you want to talk to your mother? She requested. Actually, I have news for the both of you that I feel you'll like. Lelouch said with a smile. Colin also knew that was another reason Lelouch had been so chipper this week. His mother was alive. That certainly came as a surprise when she and all their friends heard. But even more surprising was that she was in Anya's body this whole time, even while at Ashford. That was certainly weird to think about. But regardless, Colin was glad to know that Anya was safe and away from Shockwave, as well as happy for Lelouch and Nunnally. We think we might know a way to separate you two. Lelouch revealed, causing Anya to gasp. Does the phrase, cortical psychic patch, ring any bells? I've heard Shockwave and Arcvale talk about it with each other a few times, but I don't quite know what it is. Anya answered. Basically, it allows one to enter the mind of another individual. Lelouch explained. The Decepticons would use this as a form of interrogation. And Suzaku also underwent the process while he was still under Megatron's command. That thought caused Lelouch's smile to fade and be replaced with anger over what that monster did to his friend, but he was quick to put it away and continue. We've seen that it is possible for humans to undergo the process. That being said, I coined the idea to Ratchet, Rakshata, and all the others, but about using a similar process to transfer my mother's mind from your body into a new one. Anya couldn't contain her own gasp. She even heard Marianne do the same within her own mind. Not only that, after we returned from the Geass Order, I did a blood test on Misty since she was from there, to see if we could try to find out where she was really from. I probably should have done that sooner, though. Lelouch went on. But we found out that she's actually a clone. A clone. Anya looked in surprise. A hybrid artificial being. Lelouch continued. Her body was grown from combining the DNA of my mother and Sarah. Maybe it was an attempt to try and replicate her code. But regardless, she's proven that cloning is possible. And with her DNA, and the advancements of Cybertronian technology, we may be able to clone my mother a new body just for her. It may not be exactly like the one she originally had, but close enough. Anya had no idea what to say, her eyes watering. It'll take some time. There's a lot to consider, but Ratchet says it is a possibility. Lelouch said. But, I promise, you two won't have to be stuck together forever. Lelouch, Anya was already crying as Colin went over and put a comforting hand on the younger girl's shoulder. Why your mother? She wants to say something. Go ahead, he allowed. Anya's eyes glowed as Marianne took control, who was just as emotional as Anya was just now. Lelouch, you'd really do that for me? Of course. His smile only grew as he gently took her hands. Mother, you've been through so much, but now we have chance to start over, all of us. So many people here, Optimus, Sarah, Bumblebee, Nunnally, Suzaku, Colin, everyone, you would not believe the impact they've all had on me. They're like my family and, I want you to be a part of that. I promise, once this war is over, and you have a body of your own again, we can be a family. All of us. And Anya, you're welcome to be a part of all of this too. He said to the girl inside as he knew she was still hearing all of this. Marianne leapt towards her son and wrapped her arms around him, bawling her eyes out as he emotionally held her close. I don't deserve you. I really don't deserve you, you magnificent boy. As she continued to watch the tender moment, Colin nearly choked up, trying to push back her own tears. She happened to glance back at Sarah as she smiled at her. While the amnesiac girl still didn't quite understand what was going on, she ended up smiling back. The mother pulled away from her son as she wiped the tears from her eyes. I still can't believe how much you have grown. Guess I had some good influences. Lelouch said. Perhaps we may even be able to use the patch to restore Chera's memories. A smirk fell on his face. I'm sure she'll have plenty of embarrassing stories of you to share with us. Though that was meant to be a joke, a cold chill ran down Marianne's metaphorical spine at the thought of that. Sarah regaining her memories. If she did then, she wasn't going to sabotage this. Lelouch should be allowed to pursue this. She would no longer get in her son's way as she had before. However, that also brought to mind another question she had to ask. Speaking of which, what happened to Vivi exactly? Marianne asked. Lelouch's smile faded as he spoke seriously. We brought back the Nemesis chassis with him still inside after Megatron was sealed away. We were able to extract him from that metallic body, only to discover that he was dead. What? Marianne looked in surprise. Dead. She saw her son give a single nod in confirmation. What about his code? I don't know. Lelouch looked away. The only other person who was with him at that moment in time was Megatron. I don't even want to think of what that could mean, but with all the thought elevators destroyed and Megatron sealed away, I am doubtful he can find a use for it. And, Vivi's body. Marianne wondered. We didn't want to take any chances, so we used a ground bridge to send him straight to the Earth's core. Lelouch answered. It's over 5,000 degrees Celsius, so he'd disintegrate in an instant. Even if he was still somehow alive, he can't teleport out. He'd disintegrate over and over again for as long as the planet still lives. The young prince had a righteously vindictive grin on his face. About as close as he can get to eternal damnation. Good. Marianne said truthfully. He's done our family a lot of pain. He's done so many people pain. I'm just glad he can no longer harm anyone. Lelouch said. Well, I should be going. Marianne stood up fully and prepared to leave. Oh, I do have one request though. What is it? Lelouch asked. Marianne smirked as she glanced at Lelouch as well as Colin. If possible, I'd like to have my new body before I'm a grandmother. That comment caused Lelouch and Colin's faces to turn red, which earned a laugh from Marianne before leaving. Grandmother. Sarah looked towards Colin. Are you with child? What? No. Colin said as her face was redder than the Gurren. That was just a joke. She said as Lelouch sat back with his head steaming, but he couldn't help but feel happy. For some reason, hearing his mother joke about him and Colin in a relationship felt like she was giving her blessing for them being together. As they walked through the hallways, and they were certain they were alone, Anya spoke telepathically as Marianne was still the one in control of their shared body. Who are you kidding? The younger girl thought with spite. You don't get to act like a kind mother after what you did to them. But you were right about one thing, you definitely do not deserve a son like him, or a daughter like Nunnally. I know. Marianne made no attempt to hide her regret. But, you won't have to bear with me for much longer. If what they say is true, then. I don't care how you're out of my body, whether your mind gets transferred into a clone, or a Geass canceller erases you. Just as long as you are out. But not before you tell them the truth. Anya stated. And I will, Marianne reasoned. But you haven't. You've had a whole week and you haven't said a thing to them. Neither have you, Marianne argued. I can't stop you. You could tell them any time you want. But you didn't. Anya paused a moment before responding. Because their first priority is assembling the United Federation of Nations. I don't want to distract them. Neither do I, which is why I haven't told them yet. Marianne said. Listen, I know I'm a hypocrite for doing this, but you've seen how happy and hopeful they are. That's lit a fire under them that's gotten all this going. And they're so close to having it done. Once the UFN is officially formed, we can take the fight to the Decepticons and finally rid the world of them. They need to focus on that. But I promise, when it's all said and done, I will tell them the truth. Again, there was no response from Anya right away. 1 week. You have 1 more week to tell them. If you don't, I will. Deal. Marianne accepted. She already knew what would happen once she did tell them the truth. She knew Lelouch and even Nunnally would end up hating her and she didn't blame them. She was resigned to it. She had already made her bed when she joined Charles and helped him with Ragnarok. It will be time for her to soon lie in it. That was something she had already accepted long before she and Anya were both rescued. Oh my, I can never get tired of looking at all this ancient Prime stuff. Lloyd said as he gazed at the Forge of Solus Prime that currently lay in the massive Nightmare Laboratory. We agree, my dear Asplund. Rakshata stood next to him. First, a shield that can deflect any known weapon of mass destruction, then a sword that can cleave a mountain, even a device that can merge other machines together, now a hammer that can create anything out of existence based only on the user's imagination. What I wouldn't give to be a Prime myself and wield this beauty. Lloyd said as if he had fallen in love, caressing his hand on the shiny metal of the forge. What I could make. Oh Lloyd, you are about as worthy of being a Prime, as you are likely to quit pudding, cold turkey. Cecile shot as she, Nina, Fix-It, Perceptor, and Sophie all joined them, most of them laughing at Cecile's remark. Glad to see my assistant has such faith in me. Lloyd said sarcastically while Rakshata just grinned. He then spotted Sophie. By the way, ever since we caught Arkvale, you've been digging into him non-stop, haven't you Sophie? And I mean quite literally, going into his mind with that cybernetic brain he's got. It's not just his brain though, most of his nervous system is cybernetic now. Sophie said. But it's thanks to that we were able to patch into him and download all his memories, learn more about what he's been doing in the Geass Order. But there is one particular subject that you have been looking into. Lloyd already knew what Sophie's primary reason was for going into Arkvale's research. While the cortical psychic patch was invented by Shockwave for horrible and irrational methods and outlawed by Autobots, Fix-It began. With Arkvale's memories and research, we could find a way to fine-tune it to awaken those who are stuck in a coma, perhaps even transfer the minds of certain individuals in new cloned bodies. But it's all theoretical now. Perceptor quickly said to prevent hopes from getting up too high. I'm not saying we shouldn't explore options like this, just that we need to be careful and go one step at a time. I know, Sophie said with a faraway look in her eyes. It was her hope that this research could awaken her comatose husband, but she wouldn't rush into this. She knew this was unknown territory for all of them and would go in cautiously. But it is good to have hope, right? Nina said, gently grasping Sophie's hand as she smiled at the older woman. Hope is a beautiful thing, I lost hope a long time ago. But now, after meeting everyone and seeing the world outside of Area 11 or Britannia, now I don't feel so shy or alone anymore. So, let's keep hoping, right? She said with a beaming smile and a giggle. Sophie smiled back. Right. Laughter. That was what could be heard outside as the group consisting of Layla, Akito, Sideswipe, Ryo, Grindcore, Yukiya, Ayano, Anna, Claus, and even Windblade as they all sat together with the humans in the group helping themselves to some ramen from a nearby food stand as they remembered their time with the gypsies back in the EU. And the guy was wearing a dress. Ryo laughed. But with a face like that, you could almost mistake him for a girl. Who would have thought the Great Zero could be such a cutie? Yukiya joked, causing most of the group to laugh, save for Akito who merely smiled as opposed to outright laughter. These old ladies sound like they're a lot of fun. Grindcore said. Wish we were with you guys back then. You kidding? Seeing giant metal robots might have given those old cronies a heart attack. Yukiya said. Not those hags. Ayano replied. No, those ladies had nerves of steel. Old Claus here wouldn't last 10 seconds. She nudged the older man in the side. Probably not. He said as he drank from his flask. Wonder what they would do with old Slick, here. Windblade nudged Sideswipe in the side. Maybe they got something more his size. I can see him becoming more feminine myself, the same way he's so egotistical about his appearance, the same way most human females on this planet are. Strongarm joined in. No offense, you three. She quickly said to Layla, Ayano, and Anna. None taken. They all replied at the same time with Layla petting Eliza on her lap. Was that some sort of jab about me being shallow or something? Sideswipe said in a partial accusatory fashion. You make it sound as if we never suspected that of you to begin with. Akito commented. That actually caused most people to look at him in surprise. Did you just make a joke? Claus questioned. A proud smile formed on his face. Akito Hyuga, the feared ghost of Hannibal, has a sense of humor. Who knew? Look out, or he might kill you all with his unnatural smiles. Grindcore joked, causing everyone to laugh even more, with Akito simply smiling. I suppose you've all rubbed off on me. Akito admitted. But that's a good thing, isn't it? Layla said as she reached out with her hand to lightly grasp his own. One look into her beautiful eyes only caused his smile to grow even more as his heart felt lighter. He knew they still had a difficult trial ahead of them, with the war still raging on and his twisted brother still out there, just being here with everyone else, all the friends that he made, and the young woman that he had come to love, all his troubles seemed far away. He felt like he could accomplish anything. Meanwhile, in a much similar setting, one group consisted of Maribel, Orpheus, Uldren, Ashley, Sokia, Leonhardt, Toto, Jean, and Makira all sat together under their newly constructed ship, the Granberry Mk2. It looked almost exactly like the original ship the Glinda Knights operated, now it had a black face to it that carried the emblem of the Autobot Black Knight Alliance on it. Aw, look at that beauty. Sokia said with a smile. It's sad what happened to the old Granberry, but I think this one will suffice. How were you able to build a new ship so fast, again? Orpheus asked. Cornelia and her team had brought down Schneisel's ship, the Avalon, during their relic retrieval mission. Uldren explained. Our side was able to scavenge all the parts from that and combine it with what we could salvage from the Granberry and, here we are. Kind of fitting, considering he betrayed us. Maribel said with a glare at the mention of the brother who betrayed not only their world, but their family. Well, I'm certainly looking forward to what this badass mother can do. Ashley grinned. He then chuckled. If you think about, this thing is basically a turducken. That caused everyone to look at him with ridiculous expressions, save for Jean as she simply looked in mental exhaustion. Ashley. Hey, wait, just hear me out, guys. Ashley began. See, this thing is supposed to have nightmares inside it, right? Well, that's the chicken part, and yes, I did the research and it turns out that it's a chicken stuffed into a duck, stuffed into a turkey. And most of that traitor bitch Schneisel's ship was taken apart to be reconstructed to help build the frame, so that's the duck part. And finally, the old Granberry's parts were built over it to look like the original, making the turkey. See, we got a giant flying metal turducken here. I don't know whether you're joking or being serious. Maribel commented. How have you put up with him for so long? Makira asked Jean. I just tune out half the stuff he says. She replied. Only half. Makira raised an eyebrow. Despite that, the group couldn't help but find some levity in this one moment they shared together. This couldn't make Toto any happier. In fact, ever since confessing to her friends her origin and helping to bring down the Geass order, everything just seemed so much brighter to her. She not only had friends to depend on, but she was also part of something that was truly changing the world for the better. In this moment, she felt she truly was where she belonged. And that was made all the more evident as Uldren reached out to grab Toto's hand with a smile, earning a smile from her as well. Uldren then did the same with her twin brother, smiling as she held his hand, and he smiled as well as he tightened his grip over her hand. The irregulars? Dalk asked as she, Alice, Nunnally, Sancha, Lucretia, and Misty all stood alongside Grimlock. That's right, Alice confirmed. After you were cleared from medical, and you all said you wanted to join this alliance, I asked for Zero to bring us together as our own team. Our unit's name will be called the Irregulars. I think it's kind of fitting, considering how much we all stand out, for obvious reasons. Sancha commented. And you're the one leading this group? Dalk asked Grimlock, feeling rather nervous around the massive Dinobot. Yes, he answered simply. I know what it feels like to be a bit of an outsider, even with those on the same side. And, to be on the receiving end of experimentation. Grimlock truly did feel a kindred connection with each of these girls. He saw quite a bit of himself in them as well as his own team. For that reason, he would look after them. Grimlock felt a gentle touch on his leg and looked down to see the tiny Nunnally looking up toward him with a sympathetic expression. He simply nodded in acknowledgement. But Alice, I thought you were part of the Zero Squad. Lucretia pointed out. I was, but this was still my choice. Alice said. Anya and Jeremiah are going to be taking my place, now. And you? What role will you play? Dalk asked Misty. You're not a pilot. I'll be serving as logistics and coordination. Misty offered. In a way, I'm an irregular too. Are you alright, Misty? Nunnally asked as she gently took her hand. How are you, dealing with that? I'm a hybrid clone of your mother and Sarah. Misty finished. Honestly, it doesn't feel all that big a deal for me. Really? Even Grimlock was somewhat surprised. Really? Misty assured. I mean, I didn't expect it, but before escaping the Geass order with Orpheus, I knew nothing. I was nothing. I had no past or family or even a home. But now, I have all that. I don't care for my origin anymore. All that matters is what I am right here and now, what I chose to be. And I chose to be Misty Ix, an irregular of the Black Knight Autobot Alliance. Nunnally and Alice couldn't help but smile in pride at how far she's come. Well said. Alice nodded with approval. What about our nightmares? They were wrecked after that whole battle. Lucretia asked. It's all ready. Nunnally told them as she handed each of the three girls data pads, each one showing their repaired units, complete with new paint jobs. Ratchet and everybody were able to reverse engineer that awful Nemesis Prime machine and use its parts to repair most of the damage. Everything else was easy enough for them to fix. They took apart that knockoff bot that VV piloted and used it to fix our units. Dalk asked as she looked away with a satisfied and borderline vengeful grin. Good. After everything that monster put us through, all of us, Alice put a hand on Nunnally's shoulder, fully aware of what he did to her. The fact that something that was once his is being used to build us back up again is rather cathartic. She grinned. I imagine he must be throwing a fit in his grave right now. Well, I can think of at least one other that deserves to be on the receiving end of our new suits. Sancha commented. Shockwave. Grimlock growled. We'll all get our vengeance on him for what he did to us, all of us. Alice said that last part toward Grimlock, to which he wholeheartedly agreed. Speaking of which, you still have to name your nightmares. Nunnally offered. Name them, Lucretia asked. Of course. Nunnally smiled. Alice named hers the Pegasus, so you have to name all yours too. You were the one that named it, Nunnally. Alice pointed out with a half grin. But you still like it. Nunnally gave a bigger smile, causing Alice to teasingly push her away. Name them, Dalk began to think at first, looking at the data pad of her newly customized nightmare. Gone was its black and purple design, now it was white with green armor on its upper body and weapons. Well, its primary weapons do kinda look like dragon mouths. How about dragon? Don't the Black Knights already have a team with the name, Dragon, in it? Lucretia pointed out. The Black Dragon unit, yes. Misty confirmed. And just, Dragon, alone sounds pretty generic. Maybe something a bit more specific. Nunnally offered. If you don't mind, I remember Suzaku and even Toto telling me about Japanese myths involving specific dragons. What about Ryujin? It's the Japanese dragon god of the sea. If you don't like it, that's fine. I'm just making a suggestion. Ryujin. Dalk took a moment to let the name go through her head. She smiled. I like it. Ryujin it is. Alright, my turn. Lucretia looked at her nightmare, which was primarily red and white. She noted the double-mounted energon guns. Maybe something involving weapons, or metal even. Hey, quick question, what's the strongest metal on Earth? Tungsten. Misty answered. That's it. I'll name my unit Tungsten. Lucretia stated. I guess that just leaves me. Sancha pulled out the info on her unit, taking a look at how its appearance changed as well, which was now primarily white, though it had a black coloring to it on its armored chest plate. It also had white shoulder pads. She looked at the curved blades that it wielded. For some reason, she thought of a scorpion's tail when she saw the shape of the blades. Maybe something related to a scorpion, maybe Scorpio. I like it. Alice nodded. Simple and easy to remember. Dalk approved. I think it's great. Nunnally beamed. It suits just fine with me. Lucretia said. Named after one of the zodiacs. I think it's fine. Misty approved as well. Scorpio it is, then. Sancha decided. That settles it, we're a team now. Nunnally said excitedly. Grimlock interjected. You're not a fighter. Maybe not, but I want to help. She responded. I want to be a part of this. Plus, you're all important to Alice and she's important to me, so that makes you all important to me too. That caused Alice to blush as she looked away to try and wipe her blush away before addressing her friends. Lucretia, Sancha, Dalk, I love you guys. I love you as if you were my own sisters, but Nunnally, she touched me in a way I didn't think was possible. Having her in my life made me want to be better, and I want that for all of you. I want the people who are most important to me, to be together with me. All of them. So, please, will you consider Nunnally to be one of us? She bowed her head. The three irregulars shared glances for a moment before the oldest, Sancha, walked over and placed a hand on Alice's shoulder. Of course, we will. Anyone who's a friend to you is a friend to us. You know we're a tight-knit group, but who can say no to anyone this adorable? Dalk wrapped her arms around Nunnally as if she were something to cuddle, causing Nunnally herself to blush. She also did help to save us from the Geass order, so I'd be more than happy to have her with us. Lucretia added. Well, looks like it's unanimous. Nunnally, consider yourself an honorary irregular. Sancha said. Nunnally and Alice both smiled so widely as they each shed tears of joy before all six girls came together in a group hug. As they shared this tender moment, Grimlock couldn't help but feel a great deal of happiness for them. Yet, at the same time, it made him miss his own team even more. But, while nobody could ever replace Swoop, Slug, Snarl, and Sludge, these girls were his team too, and he would fight beside them and protect them with every fiber of his being. When he would find his team, and he will, the first thing he would do would be to introduce them to these girls. He had feeling that Swoop would especially take a liking to them. Excuse me, Nunnally. All their eyes were directed to two specific individuals, one being Nunnally's former maid, now bodyguard, the other being Colin's mother. Sayoko. Akari. Nunnally asked. The two women shared smiles with one another as the nurse spoke. It's time. And so, by ratifying this charter, it will give birth to an alliance that will ultimately push the Decepticons off our world. Zero declared as he, Euphemia, Wizard, Layla, Shink, Tianzi, Kagaya, Kirihara, the still Geass Smillas, and Villains all stood together along with Optimus Prime and Ultra Magnus on a stage before many delegates of various nations on Earth. A large holographic map of the planet Earth was displayed behind them, with most of the landmasses glowing blue, while the North American continent was glowing purple, emphasizing Decepticon control. And its name shall be the United Federation of Nations. Zero revealed, causing many of the delegates to look in awe and surprise. The purpose of this charter is not only to remove the Decepticon threat, but to ensure a peaceful future for our world so that no superpower like Britannia can ever rise again. Euphemia said. The EU has already pledged its full support to this charter. Layla revealed. The Chinese Federation stands by them as well. Shink added. Euro Britannia will also lend its aid. Villains spoke up. Already, all military forces from the three superpowers have lent their support and will rally behind the Black Knights and the Autobots. Smillis said. Once this charter has been ratified, we'll begin our final campaign against the Decepticons. Wizard stated. Optimus Prime then stepped forward. All Decepticon forces are currently occupying the continent that was once the Britannian homeland, with their capital known as New Kaun residing where Pendragon once stood. The continent is protected by a defensive wall that is meant to keep out any and all intruders. The holographic image of Earth changed to reveal an image of one section of the large and metallic walls that occupied the entire continent's outer border, which was lined with multiple large cannons. But one particular area of interest was a massive tower in the center. However, we've also managed to learn that this defensive wall is controlled by a series of command towers at various points throughout the structure. Ultra Magnus revealed. If even one of these towers were to fall, the entire system will collapse and leave the continent open for invasion. Geass stated. The operation is simple. Optimus went on. The Autobot Black Knight Alliance will launch a full-scale assault on one of these towers to take the entire system offline. Once that is done, all the planet's military will begin a sweeping campaign that will purge all Decepticon forces from the continent and push them off the planet. But we must solidify this charter now, before the Decepticons can muster their forces and further strengthen their defenses. Zero decreed. Time decides our victory or defeat. I ask that you all cooperate only on the focus of our plan. I know that representatives here must discuss the needs of their own individual countries, but remember, what you decide will forever change the course of world history. With that declaration, the entire representatives were in an uproar of applause and cheers. Among them was Diethard, who had recorded the whole thing as he looked with a fanatical and gleeful expression. They did it, they actually did it. They've united the whole of humanity. Meanwhile, the door to Lelouch's personal quarters opened as Rye, Shirley, Millie, and Rivals entered. Hello. Anyone home? Rivals called out. A quick yelp caught their attention as they saw the amnesiac Sarah hide behind a bookcase. Rivals, don't scare her. Shirley scolded as she set down a small box on the nearby table. Hey, it's okay, she spoke to Sarah as she slowly and calmly walked closer toward her with an encouraging smile, gently holding out her hand. We won't hurt you, I promise. We're friends of Lelouch. Despite still being nervous and unsure, Sarah looked at the smiling face of the girl in front of her, and that smile seemed enough to lower her anxiety, only slightly though, as she slowly reached out to gently take Shirley's hand and be led out into the open. Do you remember any of us? Shirley asked, only causing Sarah to look in confusion. She really has lost her memories. Rye thought with a sympathetic expression. He knew exactly what she was going through right now. To wake up in an unfamiliar environment, to be surrounded by strangers you don't even know, the best thing he could do for her was help her feel more comfortable until they found a way to restore her memories. It's all right. Let us introduce ourselves. My name is Rye, this is Shirley, Rivals, and Millie. You don't have to be afraid of us. I promise, nobody is going to hurt you. He assured with a smile. Sarah looked at each of them. Rye, Shirley, Rivals, and Millie. Yeah, that's right, Millie said as she walked over to open the box that Shirley set you down. We brought you something to eat. Pizza. She revealed the warm dish that was inside. Pizza. Sarah had never seen anything like this. They said it was something to eat. Was it food? Yeah, it's food. You eat it. Like this. Rivals took a piece and ate the small part of it first. That is good. Try it. Seeing how they encouraged her, Sarah slowly picked up a piece herself. She sniffed it for a second, it certainly smelled good. She then took a small bite, that's when her eyes widened. The sensation and taste were unlike anything she felt before. She then proceeded to eat more. You like it? Shirley asked with a smile, while Sarah nodded with a full mouth before she continued to eat. Would this really bring her memory back? Rivals asked Rye with a whisper. Like a taste muscle memory or something. That's not a real thing. Rye whispered back. I honestly doubt having her favorite food could undo whatever Megatron did to her, but it's still nice. What about that mind patch thing Nina and Ratchet were talking about? Rivals still asked. Could that fix it up? Maybe, Rye thought for a second. He even remembered Lelouch thinking about possibly cloning Chera's body, and if that body didn't have a code to it, they could transfer her mind to that body so that she could be mortal again. But they still had a lot of testing to work out before they even began to think about doing it. Hey, listen, Shirley got Chera's attention. We want you to know, you don't have to be so nervous. I get that you don't really know anyone here, but you can consider us your friends. Sarah swallowed the food in her mouth before answering. Friends. You do know what a friend is, right? Rivals asked, only for Rai nudge his side with his mechanical arm. Ow. A friend is someone who cares about you and likes you, right? Sarah answered, unsure of her own response. Yeah, something like that. Millie answered. A friend is a person who cares about you and is always there for you. And that's what we want to be with you. You may not remember what happened before, but you've had such a huge impact on all our lives. Rai said as he kneeled to Chera's level and smiled. You are our friend, Sarah. No matter what, we got your back. We'll always be here for you. Don't ever forget that. She didn't know why, but these people that she had met, including the young master she currently served, they weren't like anybody else she worked for. They were kind, they were patient, and they always seemed to have a smile on their faces. Before she knew it, she found herself smiling along with them. All right, drinks all around, Tamaki exclaimed as he brought a whole bunch of beer bottles for everyone present, which included Suzaku, Euphemia, Cornelia, Ogi, Chigusa, and Guilford, and even the former knights of the round consisting of Gino, Anya, Nonette, and Monica. Ironhide, Warpath, Hot Shot, Wheeljack, and Chromia were all present as well. Tamaki, I don't drink, plus Anya's underage, Suzaku said. But she's got a ghost of an adult lady inside her. Tamaki slung his arm around him with an already open bottle in the other. Don't be such a party pooper, Kururugi. You know by now that Autobots don't drink. Ironhide pointed out. But, we do have reason to celebrate. Chromia said. After that whole speech, pretty much every country's already signing up for the UFN. And once all that boring political stuff is out of the way, it's on to the real fun part. Wheeljack grinned. I hear that. Warpath agreed as he and Wheeljack slammed their arms together. And we owe it all to this guy. He patted Hot Shot on the back. You brought the Forge of Solus Prime here, Hot Shot. That was incredible, Nonette stated with a wide grin. What can I say? I'm a wrecker. We always shoot big, Hot Shot said with a satisfied grin. Well, that's not the only reason we're celebrating. Gino put his arm around Anya. We got the whole gang back together. We're all really happy to have you back, Anya. Even if you have someone else inside you. Monica smiled as she, Gino, and Nonette gathered around their comrade, who couldn't help but get a little emotional. Thank you. In reason to celebrate number 3, Buckethead has finally kicked the bucket. Tamaki held up his half-empty bottle with a wide grin. I wouldn't be so sure about that. Ironhide put in. Oh, come on. Tamaki complained. Don't be a party pooper, to Ironhide. No, I have to agree with him. Suzaku said with a serious look. I just can't help but get this bad feeling that he might still be out there. It has been over a week though, and we've still seen no sign of Megatron. Guilford said. Even what Decepticon radio chatter we could intercept suggests he's missing in action. Chigusa added. I just like to feel more comfortable if we had more concrete proof. Suzaku commented. It's not like we can fetch his body or anything considering the overly complicated trap that Lelouch and Optimus put him in. Cornelia commented. I kinda feel the same way myself. Euphemia said. Megatron has done so much damage, to many of us personally, I'd love nothing more than for him to be truly gone. But, without knowing for certain, I can't help but feel more than a little nervous. But she felt her own hand being gently squeezed and looked to see Suzaku's assuring smile. I know what I just said, but if he ever truly does come back, I won't rest until he's put in the ground for good. Suzaku vowed. You mean, we won't rest? Ironhide told him. Don't forget Suzaku, we're all in this together. Cybertronian, Japanese, Britannian, all of us. Till all are one, right? Suzaku responded. Till all are one. Ironhide confirmed with a nod. Till all are one, Marianne thought as she remained inside Anya's body with the girl in control as she continued to mingle with her teammates and friends. That particular phrase, it sounded very similar to what Charles wanted to do with humanity through Ragnarok. But at the same time, it almost felt like just the opposite. She wasn't quite sure how to feel about that at first, other than regret that she didn't leave sooner. "Excuse me, Suzaku, Cornelia, Euphemia," they all looked to see Jeremiah approaching them. "Jeremiah, would you care to join us?" Chigusa invited. "I'd love to, but I was told to fetch you three specifically, as well as you, Lady Marianne," Jeremiah said to Suzaku and the former princesses, and even the ghost-like individual that currently dwelled in Anya's body. "It's Lady Nunnally." Her eyes slowly fluttered open as the anesthesia had worn off completely. It wasn't meant to be a big dose that would knock her out for hours on end, at most it was just 1 hour. But Nunnally had awoken as she pulled herself up from the hospital bed with Akari and Cecile checking her over. "Hello Nunnally. Are you doing alright?" Akari asked. "I'm just fine, thank you," Nunnally said. "And your legs?" Cecile asked. Nunnally slowly looked at her lower body. Her only clothing besides undergarments was a hospital gown, where she had a clear view of her own legs. No longer were they covered by the cybernetic exocasts that used Cybertronian nanotechnology to repair all the damaged nerves and restore muscles that had been fatigued due to the lack of use for years. She could see the bare skin of her own legs. But more than anything, she could feel them. Her eyes shook as she felt her own toes twitch. She could feel her legs all the way down to her toes, something she never felt since she was so little. She gasped as her eyes watered, prompting Akari to place calming hands on the girl's shoulders, but she couldn't help but cry herself as she had gotten to know Nunnally quite a bit during their time together and was beyond happy for her. "Alright, let's sit up slowly," Cecile instructed as Nunnally pushed herself up from the bed and slowly set her feet down on the ground. She could feel the cool touch of the metal floor underneath, and despite that being unwelcome for most people, that was a sensation she more than welcomed herself, and it only made her more excited. She almost lost her balance, but Akari was able to help steady her. Taking her hands away, she and Cecile watched as Nunnally was able to stand on her own 2 feet without any kind of incident for the first time in 8 years. Nunnally almost couldn't believe it. She was standing and walking on her own. She heard how this technology could enable her to walk again, but now that she was experiencing it for the first time. "Now let's try and take it as slow as possible," Cecile encouraged. "You don't want to," she was interrupted as Nunnally broke out into a run, much to the women's shock. "Wah, Nunnally." Akari was startled by this action, prompting her and Cecile to try and run after her. The young girl had sprinted out of the hospital room where so many other people, including Lelouch, Colin, Suzaku, Rai, Euphemia, Sayoko, Cornelia, Jeremiah, Kagaya, Anya, Shirley, Millie, Rivals, Nina, Toto, Maribel, Alice and all her friends, and even Layla and Akito all appeared to be waiting. But none of them had expected Nunnally to run out at a full sprint. Nunnally. Suzaku was more than shocked. But as Lelouch was the first to rush after his sister, everyone else was quick to join him. Though the young revolutionary pulled out his communicator to contact a certain someone. "Bumblebee, are you there?" Nunnally ran at full speeds and was already out of the medical building, running through the open outside of Horai Island. She ran past many people and the occasional Autobot, many of them looking with curiosity and confusion at the young girl that sprinted past them. As she ran, she couldn't help but laugh as well as cry. She was running. For the first time in almost a decade. She was running on her own 2 feet. She was filled with so much emotion that it practically fueled all the energy she was using as she ran. She didn't know how far or how long she was running, but that didn't matter to her. All that mattered was the sensation of the air across her face and the feeling of energy surging through her fully restored legs as she ran. Finally, Nunnally had to stop. Fortunately, she stopped at an area that had been constructed specifically for farming and growing vegetables and fruit, so there was plenty of soft grass for her to stand on. And even then, as she felt her hands on her knees to catch her breath, the soft and gentle feel of the grass beneath her bare feet was such a warm and welcome feeling to her. She even opened up her arms with a laugh as she let herself soak in the bright sun that hung over the sky. This feeling, right here and now, it almost felt like she was born all over again. Nunnally. She heard her beloved brother call her name. It didn't take long for him and everyone else to catch up, with Lelouch being the first to get to her. "You shouldn't be too active. You could Lelouch was however interrupted as Nunnally grabbed him by the wrist and pulled him to the ground with her tackling him and rolling across the ground, much to all their friends and family's surprise. Nunnally rolled along with Lelouch for a bit until she was on top of him, where she laughed and cried at the same time. Her smile was filled with so much emotion and childlike innocence, that the second Lelouch saw all that, any worries he felt melted away as he too became filled with just as much emotion as she. He was able to pull himself up slightly to a sitting position as Nunnally leapt at him with an emotional hug, something he didn't hesitate for a second to return. All the people who watched them couldn't help but feel the same kind of joy that they were feeling. Euphemia, Cornelia, Rai, Shirley, Alice, Millie, Layla, Akari, Cecile, Sayoko, Kagaya, and even Suzaku were all openly crying, while rivals and Colin tried to push their own tears down, trying to put on a tough act of sorts. Akito, Toto, and Jeremiah all simply smiled. As for both Anya and Marianne, tears were shed. Tears from both of them. Marianne honestly couldn't believe that her own daughter was walking on her own 2 feet again. After what Vivi did, even Britannia's most advanced medical technology couldn't restore her legs. And yet, here she was. It was truly beautiful. Large metallic footsteps were heard from the side as Lelouch and Nunnally all turned to see Optimus, Bumblebee, RC, Ratchet, Elita 1, and Bulkhead approach them, all of whom were smiling, truly happy for the pair of siblings. "Thank you, Ratchet," Nunnally cried as it was his research and technology that helped make all this possible. "Thank you so much." "Yeah, Doc's a real miracle worker, isn't he?" "Yes he," however, Nunnally's eyes widened in absolute shock. She then turned to the black and yellow Autobot as he stepped forward and kneeled to her level. Bumblebee," her voice shook. "Why your voice?" A tiny plate on his face opened to reveal Bumblebee's mouth. He spoke for the first time in years. "Guess who's got his pipes back?" But, how, I don't. "The Forge of Solus Prime," Lelouch explained. "First thing we did with it was use it to repair Bumblebee's voice box. Technically speaking, I created a brand new one, in which Ratchet used to replace the one that was damaged." Optimus added. "I may have failed to save the old one, but I believe this one should suffice just fine. It is a perfect replica of the one he had lost," Ratchet said with a content smile. That was a week ago," Nunnally stuttered. Why now?" "Well, considering your legs were about to be fully healed around the time, your overprotective and borderline egotistical big brother over here wanted the whole thing to be a surprise," Bumblebee revealed. "Sorry I haven't been talking to you since then. Again, it was all his idea." He pointed to Lelouch, who gave a half smirk. "But you agreed to it wholeheartedly," the former prince commented. "True," B admitted before looking back to Nunnally. "So, what do you think?" he asked, referring to the sound of his own voice. "Like butter to your ears." Nunnally, once again, cried tears of joy, truly happy for Bumblebee. "It's beautiful, but," a half smirk of her own crossed her otherwise emotional face. "I was also expecting something of a buzz to it, given your name." "Funny, that's what I was thinking," Lelouch joked. "And that is a possibility, maybe tweak your voice box a bit." "Yeah, not happening," Bumblebee said with a fake glare, which disappeared as all 3 of them shared a laugh together. "Hey, if you're all finished gawking and crying up there, why don't you come down here and join the celebration?" he said to all the gathered friends and family members. "God, I'm still not used to hearing him talk," Colin commented as she wiped her own tears from her eyes as everyone came down to meet with all the Autobots and the happy trio of siblings. There was one who remained behind at a distance as he watched everyone in this surrogate family celebrate and laugh together. Optimus Prime could not describe the joy he felt in his spark. First, one of his oldest friends had regained what many had thought would be lost forever. Now one of the most pure and noble souls had regained something of her own. While it was true that those responsible had taken things from them that they may never get back, what they could get back, they did. And Optimus couldn't be any happier. He even felt a gaze and turned to his side to see Elita smile in his direction. The two didn't need to say anything to each other, one look in each of their optics said it all. Another who kept her distance was Marianne, still inside Anya's body. As much as she wanted to join them, she felt it wasn't right for her to do so. As much as it made her happy to see Nunnally see and walk again, it also filled her with a great deal of regret knowing all the pain that her daughter and son had to endure following that horrible incident, and how she was responsible for that as well. The more she saw all this, all these people, human and Autobot, interacting with her children, notably how Bumblebee carried himself like an older brother for the two, or even the gentle gaze of Optimus Prime who stood as the father that they never had and the one they deserved, she realized something right then and there. This is their real family. You were wrong, Charles. We both were. The Nemesis. Starscream and Schneisel currently resided in an Energon vault, one that seemed secure enough for the two to speak privately, unless one could count the special device that Schneisel had that allowed him to send coded messages to Kanan and vice versa. It was a special form of binary, one that had specific words that would seem random to the layman, so that even if Soundwave could intercept it, it would just be some random gibberish that not even he would make sense out of. Schneisel had received one message in particular that caused him to smile. Kanan says everything is ready. Despite a few of my siblings being a bit unsure, they've all agreed to our proposal. Well, the only other option they had is to be wiped out with the rest of their pathetic race. Starscream replied. Did they truly believe they can bring about a new humanity with only half a dozen or so? Anticlea has proposed the idea of incest, believe it or not. Schneisel commented, sounding unsurprised. Even now, they still stick to their so-called pureblood ambitions. Starscream rolled his eyes. I suppose I can tolerate their idiocy just a bit longer. But once it's all said and done, we are finally leaving this barren rock behind us. Oh, come now, Starscream. You can't tell me Earth wasn't all bad. Schneisel said, trying to inject some humor. I despise this planet, the Seeker stated firmly. If it isn't a scorching desert, it is a frigged wasteland. Not to mention all those wretched humans. Never setting foot on this mudball again would make me a very happy Decepticon. But first, we must tread carefully. You firmly believe Megatron still lives? Schneisel asked. Even with your declaration as leader. Megatron has come back from the dead before. It wouldn't surprise me if he was still out there somewhere. Starscream responded. Well, I sincerely doubt he'll survive if his whole body is completely obliterated. Schneisel said with an ambitious grin, one that matched Starscream's own. Let him come back, then. Even he will fall to Damocles. Starscream said. And whatever Decepticons are foolish enough to still remain loyal to his ways, will be powerless before our ultimate weapon, my apex armor, and of course, those who serve us. And you are certain that your Seekers, Knockout, and the Constructicons will side with us? Schneisel wanted to make sure. My Seekers are unequivocally loyal to their commander, I have led them long before I even joined Megatron. Starscream boasted. Knockout will side with whoever has the most power, and that will be us. The Constructicons only joined the Decepticons in the first place as they were laborers and sought more, but they are still that under Megatron's reign. Convincing Mixmaster and his lackeys to join us wasn't all that difficult. Then it seems we are well on our way, aren't we, Lord Starscream? Schneisel asked, his ambitious grin returning. Just as I've said when we've began this little coup, the Seeker matched the former prince's grin with one of his own. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. Unbeknownst to them, there was another individual who had been listening to their entire conversation. Hidden within the ducts above the vault was Steeljaw, who had remained quiet and heard every word they said. Well now, this just got interesting. The next morning. This was it. Today was the day. It was the day of the UFN Charter ratification ceremony. All countries had signed and agreed to join the alliance. And this would be broadcasted all over the world. Diethard would see to it personally that humankind as a whole saw this. Yes, we've finished preparations for our worldwide broadcast. Diethard reported. Lady Kagaya, Lady Tianzi, and Lady Euphemia are all preparing as we speak. Right, thank you. Lelouch replied back over his communication before switching to another line. Optimus, I'm on my way. See to it that everyone is there. We'll be deploying immediately once the ceremony is over. Understood. See you soon. Optimus replied. Will the rest of you be okay here? Lelouch asked as Shirley, Rivals, and Millie all sat near Sarah in his personal quarters. We'll be fine, don't worry Lulu. Shirley assured. Yeah, you just go out there and kick some con ass. Rivals pumped his fist. And don't worry, we'll take good care of Sarah. Millie said as she put a hand on the amnesic girl's shoulder. You better not be thinking of doing anything perverted to her while I'm gone. Lelouch stated. Oh, come on, I'm not that bad. Millie complained. We'll make sure Millie stays in line. Shirley said. So, Sarah tried to speak up, somewhat nervously. I've heard that, these metal giants are good, so maybe, I can, speak to them later. She asked with a nervous yet hopeful smile. Lelouch was somewhat surprised by that, remembering how terrified she was when she saw Optimus back at the Geass Order, but now she seems interested. Maybe she won't have her memories back yet, but this still seemed like a good first step. I'm sure they'd love that. Lelouch smiled as he put his Zero mask on and left. The second the masked revolutionary stepped outside, he was greeted by the smiling and encouraging faces of Colin, Nunnally, Suzaku, Rai, Jeremiah, and Sayoko. Regarding the Union of the Nations Charter, Tianzi practiced her portion of her speech in her own quarters with Shink and his soldiers providing help. I will leave explanation of it to the dual representatives of the Supreme Council, Kagaya Sumerargi and Euphemia Lee Britannia. She took a tired sigh. Are you alright? Shink asked with a smile. We could always. No, I'm good, Tianzi said with an excited smile. I can keep going. You're the Empress. We know you can. Joe encouraged. Dual representative. Cornelia asked as Euphemia prepared herself with Guilford and the former Knights of the Round in attendance as well. It's something Kagaya, Lelouch, and Optimus all agreed with, and I think it works best. Euphemia explained. If it's just a Britannian princess, even a former one, who's at the head, people could misinterpret this charter as just a facade and a possible return of the Britannian Empire, and that's not what I want. So, you're standing on equal ground with someone who isn't a Britannian in demonstration that the old ways are done. Guilford commented before he smiled. I'd say that's a brilliant idea. Euphemia took a look at herself in the mirror briefly. It was this face that started a horrible massacre, all of them grimaced, recalling the Saz. But she looked at her reflection in determination. Now it'll be this face that helps bring the world back together. That earned smiles of pride from everyone present as they couldn't be any prouder. Tamaki laughed as he appeared to be quite drunk, sitting in the room with various Japanese Black Knights, along with Ogi, Todo, Chiba, Kagaya, and even Chigusa. Okay Tamaki, I think you've had enough. Ogi said as he took the bottle from Tamaki's hands. Look at you buddy. The drunken Tamaki threw an arm around Ogi's shoulder. You used to be such a pussy back when this whole thing started, he hiccuped. But when we met Zero and Optimus you grew a spine and became a badass. He hiccuped again as Chigusa pulled him away. Well, he's not wrong. You really have grown, haven't you Ogi? Chigusa smiled as she gently took his hand before kissing him on the cheek, causing him to blush before smiling. A soldier wearing makeup is disgraceful. Todo commented as Chiba was the one putting it on him. I have to make you look good. Chiba said. It's true. We're going to be seen by the whole world. You have to look your best. Kagaya said with a wink. She also happened to notice a certain look on Chiba's face. Sir. Chiba spoke to Todo. After this war against the Decepticons is finally over, I'd like to propose a request to Kiyoshiro Todo that. Excuse me. All eyes set on the door as Fix-It entered the room. Everything is prepared, and all the representatives have gathered together. Alright, then it's time to go. Todo stood up as they all prepared to leave, though Chiba looked in disappointment. Too slow. Don't worry, you'll get your chance. Kagaya encouraged as she rubbed her hand against Chiba's arm. Every television and radio in the world were now tuned into the ceremony. The EU, the Chinese Federation, Euro-Britannia, and all other smaller countries would watch and listen as a page in world history would turn. We're coming to you live where the ratification ceremony for the United States Charter is about to begin. To help our viewers in understanding this development, the ceremony and ratification of this new charter will create a federation of nations that will surpass the old Britannia in terms of numbers and military strength. Already, representatives of the EU and Chinese Federation have arrived, along with those from Euro-Britannia and many smaller countries around the world. The Black Knights and the Autobots appear to be in charge of this formation. The Decepticons also appeared to be watching and listening, including the army that patrolled the defensive border of their continent, the Constructicons at a specific site near Darkmount in New Town, and even the Decepticon commanders on board the Nemesis including Starscream, Schneasel, Steeljaw, Shin, Knockout, Skybite, and Onslaught, with many Viacons behind them. Yet for some reason, Shockwave and Soundwave were nowhere to be seen. The Decepticons watched as they heard an applause from the broadcast, the source being the representatives clapped as they sat on multiple chairs on the stage with Euphemia, Kagaya, and Tianzi standing at the very center. As everyone in this broadcast has witnessed, all participating nations and superpowers have just signed and ratified this charter. Looks like they did it. Skybite pointed out. That's pretty much every non-Britannian nation all united under one banner. Even Euro-Britannia has joined them. Shin said. But will their combined military be enough? Knockout asked. Given how often humans tend to disagree, I honestly doubt it. My guess is that they'll follow Optimus and Zero. Schneisel assumed. And we all know how charismatic and effective they are. Let's see for ourselves. Starscream said. Finally, Article 17 of the United States Charter. Kagaya continued explaining the charter to all viewers. All ratifying nations do now decree to abandon native military power forever. What? Starscream was more than a little surprised, as were most Decepticons. Abandon military power? Skybite questioned. That's insane. Onslaught stated. To guarantee security, all member nations have agreed to employ a fighting force not affiliated with any one country. They have contracted the Black Knight Autobot Alliance. Kagaya went on. Right in front of the stage, nearly the entire alliance stood before the representatives. The Ark itself and several airships hovered over the small army as all Black Knights and Autobots stood together. This included all military officers, the Zero Squad, Elite Guard, Wreckers, the Black Dragon, the Aerial Bots, the Black Wyverns, the Crimson Knights, the Irregulars, even those among the Research and Development branch, along with intelligence and espionage. All of them, human and Cybertronian mini-cons included, all stood together with Optimus Prime and Zero at the very front, the Autobot leader having the Star Saber and Sky Boom shield attached to his back. We accept the UFN's terms. Optimus spoke up. Our acceptance allows for UFN funding and personnel involvement. In return, we shall become the shield to defend every member nation. And the sword to oppose every external foe. Zero declared. Disturbances across this world are caused by military powers of desperate nations. Tianzi read her portion of the speech aloud. The UFN shall only use military force in accordance to the full resolution by the Supreme Council. However, all member nations have not yet abandoned their military force. Euphemia spoke up. Our world is under a grave threat from the growing Decepticon occupation. In order to push this evil back, we will need every asset and resource we can. And with that, I shall put for the first motion. Kagaya said, turning to representatives. I propose that all military power now fall under the leadership of the Black Knight Autobot Alliance as they begin a sweeping campaign to push back the Decepticon occupation. Once the occupation is no longer a threat, all neighboring countries will abandon their military power. All those in favor of this proposal, please stand up. Almost immediately, every representative stood up from their chairs. And so, with overwhelming majority, under UFN Resolution No. 1, the Black Knight Autobot Alliance shall begin their anti-Decepticon campaign at once. Euphemia announced. So be it, under UFN Resolution No. 1, our first operational objective will be, New Count. Zero declared. For today in the name of freedom, we take the battle to them. Optimus declared as well. Cheers and calls of excitement were sounded by nearly every Autobot and Black Knight present. We've been running from these guys for far too long. It's time to start pushing back. Colin vowed. We'll make sure they answer for their crimes. Suzaku said. Looks like the end of the war is in sight. Bumblebee said with a smile towards RC. Then let's get started. She replied. We'll need a big clean up after this, right? Rai joked to Bulkhead. Got that right, buddy. He grinned. Nunnally couldn't help but look toward her masked brother. Even if she was at a distance away, she looked towards him with pride. Suddenly, the Jumbotron at the top of the stage turned to static as a new face and voice appeared, one that nobody would expect to see. Quite the performance, my foes. All celebrations came to a grinding halt as all looked in shock and even horror as they saw the face of the leader of the Decepticons himself, one that had been missing in action up until now. Megatron. What? Lelouch's eyes were so wide, they were almost like dinner plates. It wasn't just that Jumbotron, however. Megatron's broadcast was seen on every monitor on Horai Island that connected to the live broadcast, which in turn connected to every television and radio all over the world. The system's been hacked. It's coming in from 14 external paths. Wait, what? Rivals fell back from his seat as Millie and Shirley stood up in shock, seeing the broadcast interrupted by the face of Megatron from the television in Lelouch's room. Sarah couldn't quite explain it. But the second she saw the dark purple optics of this being, she felt her heart stop for a moment. It was almost as if she had seen the very face of evil itself. Even the Decepticons on the Nemesis were surprised themselves. Lord Megatron. Skybite stuttered. Well, look who's back. Knockout mused. I knew it. Starscream thought with a scowl. Schneisel looked with a serious glare himself. A fake disappearance, a charade, he clenched his fist. That is not possible. Ratchet muttered. But the Shadow Zone. That pocket dimension. Nina stuttered as every Black Knight and Autobot around her looked in just as much shock as she did. We destroyed all the thought elevators, didn't we? Yes. All of them. Ultra Magnus confirmed as he glared at the screen. Soundwave. It had to be. Geass assumed. Switch to the auxiliary lines. Cut the link, damn it. Diethard ordered over the comms. We can't. They got those as well. Optimus balled his fists as he looked up with a glare at the screen. He didn't seem all that shocked that Megatron had returned. But had he just now escaped? Or did he simply wait and bide his time for his enemy to make his move? If it was the latter, it wouldn't be that surprising. Of course, none were more shocked or terrified than Lelouch himself. Impossible, he escaped. Decepticons, your rightful lord and master has returned. Megatron's speech broadcasted all across the world. Do not let this charter or collection of rabble intimidate you. I have led you through fire and rust for eons and I have no intention of stopping now. This world is ours, and it is time we remind humanity of that. And now, speaking to my enemies, Optimus, Zero, I must applaud your resolve. Despite the odds, you two have refused to give up the fight. I respect your conviction, but I cannot accept it. I told you before, to defy my will is to die, and no one defies Megatron. But if you believe this army of yours can truly stop me, then by all means, face me with everything you have, because that is what I intend to do. Fight to obliterate your enemy until there is none left standing. Come and face me. I am the Dominator. I am the Destroyer. The screen showed him drawing the Dark Star Saber in all its unholy glory before he lifted it high above his head for the whole world to see. I am Megatron. All hail Megatron. All the Decepticon soldiers in Newtown and those that guarded the border lifted their fists as they chanted. All hail Megatron. 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 Seeing everyone around him looking in fear and shock, Optimus decided to step forward. He wasn't about to let all these strong souls lose their will to fight, not when they still had a chance to win this war. All eyes, including the representatives, and those who would fight alongside him, including Lelouch, all set their sights on Optimus Prime as he drew the Star Saber, which glowed its bright blue as he lifted it high in the air. Till all are one, Optimus shouted. With a fierce resolve of his own, Bumblebee drew his katana and lifted it in the air as well. Till all are one. Till all are one. RC, Colin, Suzaku, Bulkhead, Rai, Ironhide, and Ratchet all shouted. Till all are one. Euphemia and Kagaya both raised their fists, with Tianzi following their lead. Till all are one. Layla, Ultra Magnus, Akito, Elita 1, Sideswipe, Ryo, Strongarm, Ayano, Grindcore, and Yukia all exclaimed as well. Till all are one. Wizard, Toto, Ogi, Jazz, Cornelia, the Wreckers, the Black Dragon Unit, the Crimson Knights, the rest of the Elite Guard, and nearly every other Black Knight and Autobot all shouted in unison. Till all are one. Even the Irregulars shouted in conjunction with their new allies as Grimlock transformed into his T-Rex mode and let loose a roar before blasting his plasma breath straight into the air. Lelouch was in shock to see everyone like this. Despite the return of their greatest enemy, they were all still willing to fight. He wanted to fight too. He wanted to join them just as bad, but it felt like something inside him was stopping him from doing so. Was it his doubt? His fear. He was startled out of his trance as he felt his hand being gently touched by another. He glanced down to see Nunnally looking at him with an expression that mixed assurance as well as a fierce resolve to fight. That was all he needed to wash away any doubt that he had. With both their hands firmly held together, brother and sister lifted their joined fists in the air. Till all are one. From the underground chambers beneath Darkmount, Soundwave had ended the transmission as Megatron put away the Dark Star Saber. Soundwave, you are truly among my most reliable soldiers. You have my gratitude for years of unwavering loyalty and service, Megatron said before turning to the other Decepticon in the underground chamber. And you as well, Shockwave. For without you, I would be trapped within the Sword of Akasha indefinitely. My choices are based on logic. Shockwave responded. And your ultimate goal of Neo Ragnarok will logically lead to the end of all conflict indefinitely. All three Decepticons turned around to behold their latest creation. It was a tall and vertical structure that stretched all the way up to the ceiling. Large metallic frames on the side gave the impression that it was a spacebridge portal, only in a rectangular shape as opposed to it being round. A thinner metallic plate was built in between the frames, but what stood out the most was the large emblem of Geass etched into the very center. An artificial thought elevator. Megatron looked in awe. Shockwave, your work always exceeds my expectations. My personal project that not even VV was aware of. Shockwave spoke. After spending time studying the thought elevators, as well as accessing the pocket dimension known as the Sword of Akasha, it was a simple means to combine Geass energy with that of Spacebridge technology. Even with all the original ones destroyed, so long as this artificial thought elevator remains standing, Neo Ragnarok is still in play. And we have one of the keys to activate it. Megatron looked into the palm of the stolen arm of Liege Maximo. His optics, which were now permanently purple as opposed to red, glowed brightly as the purple emblem of Geass appeared in his palm as well. The code of VV. Though I may have lost my dark Geass, it is a small price to pay for immortality, as well as the completion of Neo Ragnarok. All that remains, is the final key. The code of CC. Shockwave said. But she is undoubtedly under the protection of the Autobots and Black Knights, specifically Prime and Zero. And seeing how their latest operation involved the destruction of the Geass Order and the original thought elevators, it is logical to assume they are aware of the Z-Britannia brothers' original plan for Ragnarok. It would only make sense that she'd be placed under the heaviest security. Then it seems we are well on our way, aren't we, Lord Starscream? The recorded voice of Schneisel played through Soundwave's visor before switching over to that of Starscream. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. Starscream and Schneisel's little coup is to be expected. Megatron mused. In fact, should we play our cards right, their actions will provide us the means to directly acquire CC and initiate Neo Ragnarok immediately. The Lord of the Decepticons chuckled evilly as he gazed up at the artificial thought elevator. As you say, Optimus. Till all are one. And this at the end of Season 2 Part 15 of this What If. Hope you guys like it. Do not forget to leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.